Good evening, everybody.
Dobro večer svima.
We're going to embark on an adventure tonight and tomorrow.
Ukrcat ćemo se na jednu avanturu danas i sutra.
Of all the classes that I've taught this time, this one is the most instructional.
Od svih predavanja koja sam održao, ova daje najviše uputa, instrukcija, najviše poučljiva.
So I hope it has information that you can use.
Nadam se da ima informacije koje možete upotrijebiti.
Not only the information to use, but how to use the information that we have.
Ne samo informacije koje možete upotrijebiti, nego kako ih upotrijebiti.
As we go through this, if you have any questions at all,
I dok prolazimo kroz ovo, i ako imate bilo kakva pitanja,
as you can see, we're very informal tonight.
i kao što vidite, vrlo smo neformalni večeras.
So just interrupt me, okay?
Tako da me prekinite.
Either go or whatever you need to do to get my attention.
Što god treba učinite da privučete moju pozornost.
And we'll stop and we'll talk about whatever your questions or concerns are.
I onda ćemo stati i obratiti se, odnosno sagledati vaše brige i zabrinutosti.
We have a lot of material to cover tonight and tomorrow.
Imamo puno materijala koje trebamo pokriti i danas i sutra.
And we're going to finish around 8 o'clock tonight, real time, not clock time up there.
I završit ćemo u 8 sati, ali u pravih 8 sati, ne ovo što pokazuje sat.
And we start at 9 tomorrow or 10. What did he decide? Do you know?
10?
10?
I don't know. What I heard is 10.
Okay.
So I don't know.
I haven't heard
to
different.
check.
So we'll ask him when he comes. Yeah. I'm sorry for the debate here.
Ispričavam se zbog ove debate.
Sutra
Okay.
9, a 9 do 11 piše.
Aha, okay.
9.
From 9.
Yeah, but I think he changed his mind, but we'll find out.
Ali saznat ćemo.
Yeah. We're going to talk tonight about how do I help someone who feels wounded.
Razgovarat ćemo večeras o tome kako pomoći nekome tko je ranjen.
And we all have been wounded in one way or another.
I svaki od nas je ranjen na ovaj ili onaj način.
It's impossible to go through life without being hurt.
Nemoguće je proći kroz život, a da nismo ranjeni.
Sometimes the hurt is severe.
Ponekad je ta povrijeđenost ozbiljna.
And sometimes it's less severe.
A ponekad je manje ozbiljna.
But regardless of what it is, if it hurts me, it's bad.
Ali bez obzira što se dogodilo, ako mene povrijedi, to je loše.
So what we're not going to do tonight and tomorrow is we're not going to judge whether something is severe or not so severe.
Ono što nećemo činiti niti večeras niti sutra, nećemo prosuđivati je li nešto ozbiljna povreda, ranjenost ili nije toliko ozbiljna.
So the assumption we're going to make, if someone seeks you out and says, I need counsel, I need some help.
Ako vas netko zatraži, ja trebam savjet, ja trebam pomoć.
Then that's enough to get you to stop and help them, okay?
I to je dovoljno da se zaustavite i da im pomognete.
Are we okay on that?
Jesmo li u redu s tim?
Excellent.
Odlično.
So, if you've been in my seminars before, you've seen the picture I'm going to put up here before, but I promise this is the last time you're going to see it.
Ako ste već bili na mojim seminarima, već znate ovu sliku i to će biti zadnji put da ću ju pokazivati.
This is a picture of a wounded soul.
Ovo je slika ranjene duše.
So where's the wound?
Gdje je rana?
What do you see?
Što vidite?
It's the square, the empty spot.
Ovo je pravokutnik, ovo je prazni prostor.
Yeah. Salvador Dali, when he painted this, had no idea I was going to use it in a church.
Salvador Dali nije, kada je to slikao, nije uopće imao pojma da ću ja to upotrebljavati u crkvi.
In fact, if he thought I would use it at church, he may not have drawn it.
I da je znao da će to upotrebljavati u crkvi, možda je ne bi niti naslikao.
But we're going to use it anyway.
Ali upotrebit ćemo ju i onako.
Anyone who seeks us out for counsel, who says, can you help me, I have a problem.
Svaki koji nas traži za savjet, koji kaže imam problem.
Again, regardless of whether it seems severe or not so severe, to them it represents that big hole that they feel in their heart.
I bez obzira da li to je ozbiljna rana ili nije toliko ozbiljna rana, za njih je to ta rupa u njima.
So what we're going to talk about tonight and tomorrow are what can I do to help heal that hole?
I tako da ćemo danas i sutra razgovarati što mogu činiti, kako mogu pomoći da iscijelim tu rupu.
So someone feels complete again.
Tako da bi se neko mogao osjećati potpunim.
Okay? Now, when we think about pastoral care, let me back up a minute. For 35 or 40 years, that's how I worked. I was a pastoral counselor.
Zadnjih 35-40 godina ja sam radio kao pastoralni savjetnik.
My training is in clinical psychology.
Moja naobrazba je u kliničkoj psihologiji.
And it would have been easy for me to go strictly the route of psychological help.
I za mene bi bilo najlakše odmah direktno preći na psihološku pomoć.
But I really felt like, and still to this day feel like, most of the problems we have some kind of spiritual origin.
Ali uvijek sam osjećao, i to mislim danas, da većina problema zapravo imaju duhovni uzrok.
Now that doesn't mean that there aren't severe psychological issues.
To ne znači da ozbiljni psihološki, psihijatrijski problemi ne postoje.
I don't want to minimize that at all.
I naravno ne želim to minimalizirati.
But what I found is if I just deal with someone's mental or emotional state, but do not address their spiritual state,
ali ako samo se bavim ljudskim, mentalnim i emotivnim stanjem, a ne okrenem se, adresiram o duhovno stanje,
they have a hard time feeling better and then staying in a state of feeling better.
Oni se ne mogu osjećati dobro i ne mogu ostati u tom stanju osjećaja dobroga.
So, how do we begin? How do I take on the mantle, the role of a pastoral counselor?
I kako da se odnosim prema tome, kako da stavim svoje odijelo ili šešir pastoralnog savjetnika.
I think it's really important to let Jesus be our example.
Mislim da je važno da nam Isus bude primjer.
No one did counseling better than he did.
I nitko nije vršio savjetovanje bolje nego on.
So let's look at what he did to get ready.
I zato pogledamo što je on činio kako bi se pripremio.
Jesus went through a time of preparation.
Isus je prošao vrijeme pripreme i treninga.
And we're going to jump all over the scripture, so
čitat ćemo i Sveto pismo.
Luke 4, chapter 4, verse 1.
Luka 4:1.
What does it tell us? Let's go ahead and read that. We'll bounce around the others, but this one is real important.
Isus, pun Duha Svetoga, vrati se s Jordana.
He went into the wilderness.
On je otišao u pustinju.
To do what?
Da bi
What happened in the
učinio
wilderness?
Što je on učinio u pustinji?
Do you remember that story?
I sjećate li se te priče? Kaže, to je drugi redak. I odvede ga duh u pustinju 40 dana.
He hadn't yet begun his ministry on earth.
Još nije bio započeo svoju službu na zemlji.
So in order to get ready for that ministry that he was going to have for the next 3 years,
i kako bi se pripremio za tu službu koja će trajati 3 godine,
he went to the wilderness.
Otišao u pustinju.
Now we learn from other parts of the scripture and from Luke also that he stayed 40 days.
Iz Luke, iz Svetog pisma možemo saznati da je tamo ostao 40 dana.
Now 40 days is a real important number in the Bible.
40 je vrlo važan broj u Bibliji.
What are some other 40-day events in the Bible? Do you remember?
Koji su drugi događaji koji su trajali 40?
Do you recall?
Da li se sjećate?
Moses.
Mojsije.
40 days. What else?
Jesus was tempted 14 days.
Pardon?
Jesus was tempted.
Yeah, during this time in this particular story, 40 days, yeah.
U ovoj priči, u evanđelju, Isus je bio kušan 40 dana.
It was a day much like today, the rain started, and this guy had this big boat that he started putting people in, and his family and animals, and how long did it rain?
I tko je stavio sve životinje u brod i onda je kad padala kiša i koliko je to trajalo?
40 days.
40 dana.
So what we have to be careful about is making it sound real literal, but what we know is a complete number. He accomplished everything he went there to accomplish.
On je otišao tamo da bi postigao sve što je trebalo postići.
Moses did, Noah did.
Mojsije, Noa je tako
Other
činio.
characters in the Bible did their time, and the 40 days was a complete time. And Jesus went to the wilderness for 40 days to get ready for his ministry.
Kao i ostali, Isus je išao na 40 dana u pustinju, divljinu, zato jer je to broj kompletnosti.
And we know the story of Satan coming to him and tempting him 3 times.
I u toj priči đavo mu dolazi i kuša ga 3 puta.
And Jesus rebuffed him every time with a tremendous teaching of you can't tempt the Lord your God. You can't. And he went on to say the things that he couldn't do, that Satan could not do to Jesus.
I Isus ga je 3 puta mu je odgovarao. And he said?
Just the things that Satan kept saying things to Jesus, and Jesus said, you can't say those to God. God cannot do that.
I Satan je govorio stvari Isusu za koje mu Isus rekao, ne možeš takve stvari govoriti Bogu.
And then what we find out is he emerged from the wilderness to do what? What was the next thing he did? Do you recall?
I koja je sljedeća stvar koju je nakon toga učinio?
He started his ministry.
Nakon toga je započeo svoju službu.
You know, I think that the Bible doesn't tell us this, but the Bible stories tell us this, that I think Jesus accepted his job as Messiah while he was in the wilderness.
Biblija to tako ne navodi, ali ipak nam Biblija to govori da je Isus prihvatio svoj posao Mesije.
From then on, everything was focused on the cross.
I od tog trenutka sve bilo usredotočeno na križ.
But for us tonight, what we know is Jesus didn't start his ministry until he made some preparation.
Ali ono što mi znamo, da Isus nije započeo svoju službu bez pripreme.
What does that tell us about those of us who want to work in the church as counselors? What do we need to do?
Što to govori nama koji želimo djelovati i raditi u crkvi kao savjetnici?
Prepare.
Pripremi se.
It's not easy taking on someone else's problems or helping them through their problems.
Nije lako preuzeti probleme drugoga.
We have to take care of ourselves, prepare. We have to read, we have to pray, we have to study.
Moramo se pripremiti, moramo čitati, moramo moliti se,
We got to
proučavati.
do a lot of things to take care of ourselves, prepare, do all the training we can do.
I puno stvari možemo činiti da se pripremamo, imamo mnogo treninga.
And then Jesus recognized the needs of people around him.
I onda je Isus prepoznao potrebe ljudi oko njega.
And verse 32 of Matthew 15, I will just paraphrase, just says, Jesus recognized with compassion the people that needed him.
I u Mateju 15. poglavlju kaže da je Isus prepoznao i gledao nas suosjećajno prema njima.
Now, not everything and everybody is easy to be compassionate with.
Nije lako biti suosjećajan sa svakim.
There are going to be some folks who want your help. You're going to have a hard time listening to them and being there for them.
Biće neki ljudi kojima će trebati pomoć, ali bit će teški za slušanje, teški za pomoć.
But Jesus says in order to be a good counselor, we've got to be compassionate.
Ali Isus kaže, ako želimo biti dobri savjetnici, trebamo biti suosjećajni.
So we need training.
Tako da trebamo trening, obuku, trebamo suosjećanje.
We need presence.
Trebamo prisustvo.
Matthew 13:1 says, the same day Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake.
Matej 13:1 kaže, onog dana iziđe Isus iz kuće i sjede kraj mora.
What a great place to go.
Predivno mjesto za otići.
We went to the coast yesterday.
Jučer smo bili na Jadranu.
I could sit there for a long time.
Ja mogu tamo dugo vremena provesti sjediti.
So Jesus was there, and then what happened?
Isus je bio tamo.
Every time he was anywhere, what happened to him next?
I što mu se događa sljedeće?
The crowd came.
Mnoštvo dolazi.
It was there. So he was present for people. He was there when they needed him to be there.
On je bio prisutan, on je bio tamo kad su ga trebali.
He was compassionate. The Bible tells us many times of the compassion of Jesus.
On se sažalio. Biblija puno puta govori koliko je bio suosjećajan.
And then he had empathy.
A onda je imao empatiju, suosjećajnost.
What does empathy mean?
Što znači empatija? Be empathizing with others' pain.
Okay. That I feel what they're feeling? Yes.
Ja osjećam ono što drugi osjećaju.
Now, sometimes we confuse the word sympathy with the word empathy.
Ponekad nam je u konfuziji su dvije riječi. Riječ su simpatija i empatija.
Let me give an example of the difference.
Da vam navedem jedan primjer koji pokazuje razliku.
I'm walking down the street.
Šećem ulicom.
There's a big hole in the street. A big hole in the street.
I na ulici se nalazi velika rupa.
I look in the hole.
Pogledam u rupu.
And there's Mislav.
I u njoj se nalazi Mislav.
At the bottom of the hole.
I na dnu rupe.
You can't get out.
I ne može izaći van.
I look over and I look in. Mislav, what are you doing in the hole?
I pogledam unutra i pitam Mislave što radiš unutra.
I fell in the hole.
A upao sam u rupu.
And I say, I'm so sorry.
I onda kažem, tako mi je žao.
And I walk on about my business.
I onda nastavim i hodati, idem svojim poslom.
That's sympathy.
To je simpatija.
I'm walking down the same street.
Hodam istom ulicom.
There's a big hole in the street.
Nalazi se velika rupa u ulici.
I look inside the hole.
I vidim u tu rupu.
There's Mislav one more time.
I tamo je Mislav opet.
So what are you doing in the hole?
Što radiš u toj rupi?
So I fell in the hole. I can't get out.
I upao sam u tu rupu, ne mogu izaći.
I jump in the hole with him.
Ja uskočim u tu rupu.
And help him out of the hole.
I pomognem mu da izađe iz te rupe.
That's empathy.
To je empatija.
Not that I just know what you're feeling.
Ne samo znati što osjećaš.
But I can feel what you're feeling and I'm here to help you through that feeling.
Ali ja isto osjećam te osjećaje i želim ti pomoći da prođeš kroz to.
So when people come to you and I and say, can you please help me?
I kada ljudi dođu k vama i kažu pomozi nam.
They don't want us to feel sorry for them.
Oni ne žele da imate samo sažaljenje prema njima.
What they're saying to us is, please get in the hole with me and help me out.
Oni kažu, molim te, siđi u rupu gdje se nalazim i pomozi mi.
And Jesus gave us many examples of empathy.
A Isus je dao mnoge primjere empatije.
Encouragement. People need encouragement.
Ohrabrenje. Ljudi trebaju ohrabrenje.
Jesus was the great encourager.
Isus je bio veliki ohrabritelj.
He said, don't be afraid.
On je rekao, nemoj se bojati.
Don't worry about it.
Nemoj se brinuti.
Encouragement. Part of our role as a counselor and a pastoral counselor is to encourage people.
Naša uloga pastoralnog savjetnika je ohrabriti ljude.
And then a big part of what we do as counselors is we model for people.
Također ono što kao savjetnici radimo je da dajemo primjer ljudima.
What people do is they watch us, they look at us.
Jer ljudi nas gledaju, promatraju.
And they look at us to see how is it done? How do you get through life?
I oni gledaju nas kako mi prolazimo kroz život.
Now that doesn't mean we have to get it right every time.
A to ne znači da trebamo svaki puta učiniti ispravno.
Goodness knows we're going to make mistakes.
I mi ćemo činiti pogreške.
We are. But we need to be as good a model for the people that we're helping as we possibly can.
Ali trebamo biti dobar primjer ljudima koliko god to možemo.
And then Jesus always let people discover for themselves the truth.
I Isus je uvijek dao ljudima da oni sami otkriju istinu o sebi.
Have you ever had any aha moments in your life?
Jeste li ikada imali te aha momente u životu?
When you're doing something and you go, aha, now I know what it's about.
I kada vam se dogodi nešto i onda kažete, aha, ja znam o čemu se ovdje radi.
That's altogether different than someone telling you what it's about.
I to je drugačije nego kad vam netko kaže o čemu se tu radi.
Jesus let people discover for themselves. He led them to the point of answering their own problems.
I Isus je ljude vodio do tog trenutka da sami otkriju u čemu je problem.
And then he met their needs.
I onda je susreo njihove potrebe.
He reached out and he helped them.
On je posegnuo i pomogao im.
The hungry weren't hungry anymore.
Gladni više nisu bili gladni.
The sick weren't sick anymore.
A bolesni više nisu bili bolesni.
The lonely weren't lonely anymore.
Usamljeni više nisu bili usamljeni.
Part of what you and I have to do
I dijelom ono što ti i ja moramo učiniti
is to meet the needs of the people that are coming to talk to us.
je da moramo ispuniti potrebe ljudi koji dolaze razgovarati s nama.
Now, the way Jesus helped every time,
Način na koji je Isus pomogao svaki puta,
he let them do it for themselves.
on je pustio njima da oni sami za sebe to učine.
Rarely did he do it for them.
A rijetko je on to činio za njih.
You cannot solve everyone's problems.
Ne možeš riješiti svačije probleme.
As sad as that is, you cannot solve everyone's problems.
Koliko god to tužno bilo, ali ne možeš riješiti probleme drugih.
But you can guide them right up to the point where they can solve the problem themselves.
Ali ih možeš voditi do te točke kada oni sami mogu riješiti svoje probleme.
Now, here's a very important thing to remember some principles about.
I ovdje je nešto vrlo važno što treba zapamtiti, jedan princip.
We are a very tactile, touchy-feely organism.
Mi smo vrlo taktilni, znači djelujemo na dodir.
We get a lot from being touched.
Mi dobivamo jako puno kroz dodir.
In a healthy, appropriate way.
Na zdrav i prikladan, primjeren način.
Okay? The key words are healthy and appropriate.
Ključne riječi su zdrav i primjeren način.
One of the things that Jesus taught us as he was doing his ministry
Jedna od stvari koje nas Isus poučava kroz njegovu službu
is rarely did he heal anyone that he didn't touch first.
rijetko da je nekoga izliječio, a da ga nije prvo dodirnuo.
And I mean physically put his hand on them.
I to fizički, da je stavio ruke na njih.
Okay? And we get a lot of healing and a lot of understanding when someone feels like I can get close enough to you to touch you.
I dobivamo puno razumijevanja i osjećaja kada nam neko priđe i priđe kroz dodir.
Now, one of the things that many of you know now, that I'm doing chaplain work now for people who are dying.
Znate da radim kao kapelan sa ljudima koji umiru.
Most of the people that I work with, most of the patients I work with, will die within 6 months.
Većina pacijenata s kojima radim, oni će umrijeti u sljedećih 6 mjeseci.
And that's because their illness cannot be cured.
Zato jer njihova bolest je neizlječena.
And you know the one thing that they suffer from more than their illness?
I znate od čega najviše pate, više nego od bolesti?
Is that people are afraid to touch them.
Jer ljudi ih se boje dodirnuti.
Their families don't touch them anymore.
Njihove obitelji ih ne dodiraju više.
When the nurses touch them, they put on gloves now.
A kada ih sestre medicinske dodiruju, onda stavljaju rukavice.
They live in a world where they're not connected tactily anymore.
Žive u svijetu gdje više taktilno nisu u kontaktu.
And there are lots of reasons why that happened. We don't have time to go into it tonight.
I postoji mnogo razloga zašto je to tako, ali koje to nećemo sad.
But the very first thing I do when I meet a new patient or I see my patients again for a second or third or fourth time,
Ali prva stvar koju činim kada vidim svog pacijenta i kasnije drugi, treći, četvrti put,
I shake their hand,
rukujem se s njima,
I touch them on the shoulder,
dodirnem njihovo rame,
I hold their hand while I say a prayer.
držim ih za ruku dok se molim.
When I leave, I touch them again and tell them goodbye.
I kada odlazim, onda im još jednom dodirnem i kažem doviđenja.
Some of them are not even conscious.
Neki nisu niti svjesni,
They will never wake up,
nikad se neće probuditi,
but they know they've been touched.
ali oni znaju da su bili dodirnuti.
So what we have to be able to do is develop a healthy, appropriate way to connect with people.
I zato trebamo naučiti konektirati, povezati se s ljudima na zdravi i primjeren način.
Jesus always used stories to help people understand the truth he was going to tell them.
Isus je uvijek koristio priče kako bi ga ljudi razumjeli o istinama koje im poručuje.
You know, the longer you do counseling and the older you get, the more stories you're going to have.
Što dulje savjetujete i što ste stari, to ćete imati više priča.
I'm an old man now.
Ja sam sad star čovjek.
I have lots of stories.
Imam puno priča.
Some I can tell.
I neke vam mogu reći.
Some I can't tell at all.
A neke vam ne mogu reći.
But people always want to know, where do I fit into the story?
Ali ljudi uvijek žele znati gdje se ja tu uklapam u priču.
Jesus always told stories that would help them understand.
A Isus je uvijek govorio priče da bi oni razumjeli.
Part of being a pastoral counselor is helping people by being where they are.
Dijelom biti pastoralni savjetnik je da oni saznaju gdje su oni.
And I don't mean all the time physically being where they are.
I ne mislim u fizičkom smislu gdje se nalaze.
Just emotionally and spiritually I have to be where they are. I have to understand what they're feeling, what's going on with their life.
Emocionalno, duhovno, moram biti tamo gdje se oni sada u tom trenutku nalaze.
And then the last thing Jesus taught us about being a good, healthy counselor
I posljednja stvar je ono što Isus poučavao za biti dobar savjetnik.
he took time to go be by himself.
On je uzimao vrijeme kako bi bio nasamo.
Now, why is that important?
Zašto je to važno?
What do you think? Why is it important to have alone time?
A što mislite, zašto je važno imati vrijeme nasamo? To renew, to recharge.
To recharge, absolutely. You're going to hear some pretty hard things to hear.
Jer čućete stvari koje je teško začuti.
You've got to be careful not to take it on as something that's yours. It belongs to the person you're working with.
I morate voditi pažnju da to ne preuzmete na sebe.
Let me give an example.
Da vam dam primjer.
You get up in the morning,
Probudite se ujutro,
you get dressed and you go outside
obučete se, izađete van
and you go to this very busy intersection in Zagreb.
i dođete na jedno prometno križanje u Zagrebu.
And in about 10 minutes, there's this horrible automobile accident.
I za 10 minuta dogodi se jedna užasna prometna nezgoda.
Many people are hurt.
Mnogo ljudi je ozlijeđeno.
And you just have to watch.
A vi to morate gledati.
The appropriate people come, they take the hurt people to the hospital, they clean up the mess, they clear the intersection.
Dođu odgovorni ljudi koji onda se pobrinu za te ljude i počiste sav taj nered.
And then 5 minutes later, there's another crash.
I nakon 5 minuta dogodi se drugi sudar.
Same intersection.
Isto križanje.
You got to watch it.
I vi to morate gledati.
Horrible outcome.
Je užasan ishod.
They clean it up, take people to the hospital.
Oni to sve počiste, odvedu ljude u bolnicu.
An hour later, you're standing on the same corner, there's another big car wreck.
I vi dalje sat vremena stojite na uglu i opet sudar.
Let's say by the end of the day,
I recimo na kraju dana,
8 hours later,
8 sati kasnije,
you've witnessed 7 or 8 major accidents where people are hurt.
i nakon 7-8 sati, nakon tog dana sudjelovali ste u 7-8 takvih sudara u kojima su ljudi ozlijeđeni.
What are you going to talk about at dinner that night?
I što ćete razgovarati za večerom nakon tog dana?
I heard some wonderful birds singing today.
Birds singing.
Birds singing.
Slušao sam kako ptičice lijepo pjevaju.
Is that what you're going to talk about?
Hoćete li o tome razgovarati?
No.
Ne.
You're going to say, you wouldn't believe what I saw today.
Reći ćete, nećeš vjerovati što sam vidio danas.
All day long I saw wreck after wreck after wreck after wreck.
Cijeli dan sam gledao sudar za sudarom za sudarom.
And I'm not sure I can sleep tonight.
I nisam siguran mogu li spavati.
That image is in my head.
Te slike su mi još u glavi.
Now, let's go from that intersection in Zagreb to wherever you're doing your counseling. Someone's home, in an office, coffee shop, wherever it is that you're talking to someone.
I sad idemo sa tog križanja na mjesto gdje god ćete se sresti sa onim koga savjetujete, da li je to kod kuće, da li je to ured, da li je to kafić.
And every person you talk to talks about the car wreck in their life.
I svaka osoba s kojom razgovarate govori o prometnoj nesreći koju je imala u svom životu.
Not the literal car wreck, but the figurative. My life's a wreck.
Ne doslovnoj nesreći, prometnoj nesreći, nego o njihovoj, znači u smislu imao sam životnu nesreću.
And you hear it over and over and over again.
I to iznova čujete.
What do you do with that information?
I što ćete učiniti sa tom informacijom?
If you don't do something with it, it will weigh you down. It will really make you want to stop helping.
Ako nešto ne učinite, onda će vas toliko opteretiti da ćete morati stati.
So what Jesus told us is example after example of everyone that came into his life took something from him, didn't they?
I primjer za primjerom, svi ti ljudi koji su dolazili Isusu, oni su uzimali uvijek nešto od njega.
Remember the story of Jesus walking to the crowd and the lady that was sick touched his garment?
Sjećate se priče kada je se mnoštvo guralo oko Isusa dok je Isus išao i žena koja se dodirnula skuta, njegovi skuta.
She just touched him, but hundreds of other people had touched him too.
Nije ga samo ona dodirnula, nego stotine ljudi su ga dodirivali.
You remember what he said?
I sjećate se što je rekao?
He said, who touched me?
On je rekao, tko me dotakao?
And his disciples said, teacher, how can we tell? There are just hundreds of people here.
A učenici su rekli, pa kako možemo znati kad se stotine ljudi naguravaju?
And what he said was, when she touched me, I felt the power of God leave me for a moment.
I on je rekao da kad je osjetio taj dodir, da je sila izašla iz njega.
And the woman got well.
A žena je ozdravila.
So every time he gave to someone, a bit of him went away momentarily.
I svaki put kad je davao, dio njega je u tom trenutku i odlazio iz njega.
Every time you counsel with someone, a piece of you is going to go away for a little bit.
I svaki put kad savjetuje nekoga, jedan dio vas će otići.
So Jesus' solution was, go be by yourself a little bit.
I Isusovo rješenje je budi sam nasamo.
Now, the way I handled it in my practice, in my office,
Način na koji ja to prakticiram, koji sam prakticirao u svom uredu,
was I saw my first patient in the morning at 7 a.m.
je da bi vidio svog prvog pacijenta u 7 ujutro.
And that's because they could stop by my office before they went to work.
I to je zato jer oni mogu navratiti do mog ureda prije svog posla.
So it was helpful for them to start that early.
I to je pomagalo njima da započnu rano.
But I got to my office at 6 a.m. every morning.
Ali ja sam dolazio u svoj ured u 6 ujutro svaki puta.
I had my Bible time,
Imao sam svoje vrijeme sa Biblijom,
my prayer time,
moje vrijeme u molitvi,
my music time,
moje vrijeme u glazbi.
Whatever I need to do to get ready for the day.
Što god je bilo potrebno da bi se pripremio za taj dan.
I looked at my list of patients I was going to see that day.
I pogledao sam listu pacijenata koje ću imati tog dana.
I got my heart ready for that kind of day.
Pripremio sam svoje srce za takav dan.
And so I could be prepared for that day. The other thing I did, in addition to that 1 hour, is I never worked on Friday.
I još u dodatku tome, nikad nisam radio petkom.
Now, I worked for myself, so that was easy to do.
Radio sam za sebe, pa to je bilo lako.
But I worked Monday through Thursday.
Radio sam od ponedjeljka do četvrtka.
And Friday was mine.
A petak je bio moj.
No one knew I didn't work on Friday.
Nitko nije znao da ne radim petkom.
I didn't tell anybody I didn't work on Friday.
I nikome nisam govorio da ne radim petkom.
My wife knew I didn't work on Friday.
Moja žena je znala.
But she didn't count.
Ali žena je znala da ne radi petkom, ali ona to nije računala.
But Friday was my day to heal from the week.
A petak je bio moj dan za iscjeljenje od tjedna.
From all the car wrecks I had seen all week long.
Od svih tih sudara koje sam vidio.
So one of the things that Jesus taught us about being a good counselor is you have to have time for yourself.
Jedna od stvari koje nam Isus govori ako želimo biti dobri savjetnici je da trebaš imati vrijeme na samo.
Now it doesn't mean physically you have to go away. You can be alone on the tram.
To ne znači fizički biti potpunosti sam, možeš biti sam i u vlaku.
Don't miss your stop though.
Ali nemoj promašiti svoju stanicu.
But you can be alone.
Ali možeš biti sam.
Now, let's look at what's unique about pastoral counseling.
I što je jedinstveno u vezi pastoralnog savjetovanja?
Now, when I say that word, pastoral counseling or pastoral care, what does it mean to you?
Kad kažem tu riječ pastoralno savjetovanje ili pastoralna briga, što vama to znači?
What does it mean?
Što to znači?
To je savjetovanje bazirano na kršćanskim principima, pastoralnost.
It's based on Christian principles.
Yeah. The word pastoral is not an office.
Riječ pastoralni to nije ured. To nije institucija.
It is an office in the church. We talk about pastors and preachers.
To je institucija kad govorimo o pastorima i propovednicima.
But the word pastoral means we're going to talk about spiritual things.
A kad spomenemo pastoralno, onda govorimo o duhovnim stvarima.
So being a pastoral counselor means I'm going to offer counseling to you or help to you, and we're going to look at spiritual issues while we do that.
To znači da kao savjetnik ću razgovarati s tobom i sagledat ćemo duhovne stvari.
Now, I really struggled with, from this slide on,
ja se borim od sljedećeg slajda pa nadalje.
How to do something, and I'm going to explain myself, and then we're going to do it anyway.
I ja ću se objasniti, a onda ćemo nastaviti.
I am probably the least discriminate, prejudiced, gender-specific person you will ever know.
Ja sam osoba sa najmanje predrasuda, prejudice and
just I'm role neutral. Let's put it that way. Doesn't matter if you're male or female.
Nije važno jeste li muško ili žensko. Ja sam meni te uloge nisu važne.
And believe me, growing up in Texas, that's really hard to do.
A vjerujte mi, odrastati u Teksasu sa takvim stavom je teško.
So I think there's as much room in pastoral care for men as there is women.
I mislim da je dovoljno mjesta, jednako mjesta i za muške i ženske u pastoralnoj skrbi.
This role is not gender specific.
I ova uloga nije specifična po spolovima.
But from this point on, I'm going to use the male pronoun he, okay?
Ali od sada koristit ću ovo muško lice.
Yeah. I thought about it, I could put he, she, he on every slide.
You will put...
I could do this. See where it says he represents the church?
Znači stavit ću on, muško lice.
I could do that forever.
I to mogu vječno. Tako.
Or I could just explain that when I say he, I mean she also, okay?
I kada kažem on, ali mogu isto tako reći ona.
If I put she, I could mean he also.
Ako stavimo ona, onda isto tako to znači on.
So, here we go.
Tako, idemo.
The pastoral counselor represents far more than just himself or herself, okay?
Pastoralni savjetnik predstavlja nešto puno veće od samog sebe.
As a pastoral counselor and a pastoral care person, you represent the church.
Pastoralni savjetnik predstavlja crkvu.
And you represent God.
I predstavlja Boga.
And that is an awesome responsibility.
I to je velika odgovornost.
That means I have to think 3 times, 4 times, 5 times about what I'm going to say.
Trebam 3, 4, 5 puta promisliti što ću reći.
Because it has all kinds of meaning for people.
Jer to ima razna značenja za ljude.
If I was just doing psychological care,
da radim samo psihološku brigu,
I could listen to what you have to say.
Mogu slušati što ćete reći.
I could offer you suggestions about what to do.
Mogu vam dati sugestije što da učinite.
I could make a diagnosis and send you on your way.
Mogu vam napraviti dijagnozu i poslati vas.
As a pastoral counselor, I have to know that what I'm about to say, in the mind and the heart of the person listening to me, is going to hear God said that, the church said that. What's bigger than what I have done?
Pastoralni savjetnik, ono što kaže osobi, ono što osoba čuje u svom srcu i umu, ona će čuti ono što na taj način što crkva i što Bog govori.
The pastoral setting is altogether different than other psychological or medical settings.
Pastoralno okruženje je drugačije od tih drugih psiholoških okruženja.
People bring different attitudes to you when they ask you, help me through a spiritual issue.
Ljudi donose razne stavove kad dolaze i govore pomozi mi.
Now, the pastor or the minister or the pastoral counselor can initiate a relationship.
Pastor ili crkveni službenik može inicirati odnos.
As a psychologist, I couldn't go out and say, hey, you need to come see me, you've got problems.
Ja kao psiholog ja ne mogu doći k tebi i reći, dođi me posjetiti i vidim da imaš problema.
That wouldn't work very well.
To ne bi dobro funkcioniralo.
But as a pastoral counselor,
ali kao pastoralni savjetnik,
I can put my arm around someone at church or in my workplace.
Ja mogu staviti svoju ruku na rame nekoga u crkvi ili na poslu.
And say, would you like to talk about things?
I reći, želiš li razgovarati o tome?
I can initiate things in that setting that I couldn't in any other setting.
Ja mogu inicirati takve stvari u tom okruženju gdje u drugoj ulozi ne bi mogao.
And that makes that role more special.
I zato ovu ulogu to čini posebnijom.
The training that you and I get as pastoral counselors is different than just traditional counseling.
Obrazovanje ili obuka koju prelazi pastoralni savjetnik je drugačije nego klasično.
In order for me to be effective as pastoral care, I've got to understand what the Bible says.
Ako želim biti efikasan u pastoralnoj brizi, onda moram znati što Sveto pismo kaže.
So I've got to read. I've got to study.
Tako da moram čitati, moram proučavati.
I have to study that as well as helping understand human behavior.
I moram to razumjeti isto kao i razumjeti ono što ću učiniti u savjetovanju.
And because of my role in pastoral care, I'm considered by my community to have a special place.
I zbog svoje uloge pastoralnog savjetnika, moja zajednica me stavljena u taj poseban odnos.
I may be involved in premarital counseling as a pastoral counselor.
Ja mogu biti uključen u predbračno savjetovanje.
I may deal with a lot of grief issues as a pastoral counselor.
Mogu biti uključen u savjetovanja kod onih koji žaluju.
I may have people come and talk to me about, I'm really hung up on this particular religious issue or this spiritual issue. How do I get through that?
I mogu razgovarati s nekim koji ima problema sa određenim duhovnim ili teološkim stvarima.
Let's look at just one more thing or two, and then we're going to take a short break. We've talked about who you are as a pastoral counselor.
Razgovarali smo o tome tko ste vi kao pastoralni savjetnici.
And let me say again, any of us can take on that role as counseling someone from a pastoral perspective, okay?
I svatko od nas može preuzeti tu ulogu pastoralnog savjetovanja.
We've talked about what Jesus showed us as a model to get ready for being a pastoral care person.
Ono što nam Isus pokazuje je primjer za pastoralno savjetovanje.
But let's look at the person who sits across from us in that chair or that sofa or that swing or that playground or wherever that is. What do they bring to us?
A pogledajmo na tu osobu koja sjedi s druge strane nas na stolici, na ljuljačci, na bilo gdje, na igralištu.
What they're going to bring is they're going to bring their immediate problem.
Ono što će oni donijeti jest njihov trenutni problem.
Nobody really stopped me to talk to me unless they had an issue they wanted to talk to me about, a problem they wanted to talk about.
Nitko me nije zaustavio da nije imao neki problem ili stvar koju ima za rješavati.
So you can count on the fact that somebody's got something on their mind or their heart that they want to talk about.
I morate računati s tim da netko ima nešto na svom umu o čemu želi razgovarati.
So what's the problem?
Tako da u čemu je problem?
Now, I'm going to give you a hint. This is a special secret between you and me, okay?
Daću vam
It's a secret.
Kao daću vam ideju ili vodilju.
No one knows but you and me.
Koju ne zna nitko osim vas i mene.
It's that special.
To je toliko posebno.
Just you and me and the people I tell.
Samo vi i ja i ljudi o kojima ćete govoriti.
And here it is.
Evo što je to.
The problem that people come to you with.
Problem sa kojima ljudi dolaze k vama.
More times than not.
U više puta nego
is not the problem.
To nije problem.
U većini slučajeva nije problem.
U većini, da. Nije to ono čemu govore, nije problem.
Yeah. It's the one they're talking about.
To je ono o čemu govore.
It's the one that they feel is the most important thing.
To je ono što oni osjećaju da je najvažnija stvar.
But once you begin to talk to someone and kind of peel back the onion, the layers of the onion. Ali
kad počneš razgovarati o tome, kad počneš ljuštiti glavicu luka,
you'll discover that the problem is buried deep in there somewhere. It's not the symptom they brought to you to start with.
Shvatit ćete da je problem zakopan duboko unutra, a nije simptom koji su prvo naveli.
Now, what that presents for you and me,
ono što to predstavlja vama i meni,
is that we have to stay with them for a while.
To znači da moramo ostati s njima duže vremena.
Until we get there.
Dok ne dođemo do toga.
It may not be the first time we talk to them.
I to možda neće biti samo prvi puta da smo razgovarali s njima o tome.
We may not discover till the fourth or fifth time we talk to them.
Možemo to otkriti tek nakon 4. ili 5. razgovora.
But I promise you, when they're ready to talk about it, they will talk about it.
Ali obećajem vam da kada su oni spremni razgovarati o tome, onda će i razgovarati.
So what are they bringing to you? What's the immediate problem?
I što onda oni donose vama? Što je prvi neposredan problem?
Okay, let's say the immediate problem is I'm married to a jerk.
Recimo, neposredan problem je, ja sam oženjena za kretena.
That could be wife or husband.
To može biti muž i žena.
I'm married to a jerk.
Oženjen sam sa kretenom.
What do I do?
Što da učinim?
What do you tell them?
Što ćete im reći?
Nothing yet.
Ništa još.
You don't know what's going on yet.
Jer ne znate što se još uvijek događa.
But that's the problem they bring you.
Ali to je problem koji vam donose.
Now, when they tell you that, you have to pay attention to their background.
Kada vam govore, onda trebate obratiti pozornost na njihovu pozadinu.
Where do they come from? What do they bring with them? What's the baggage they carry along with them when they come to see you?
Što oni donose sa sobom? Kakvu prtljagu nose sa sobom kad dolaze k vama?
What are their previous experiences? Have you been to counseling before? That's what I always ask everyone.
Koja su prethodna iskustva i to je nešto što uvijek prvo pitam na savjetovanju.
Have you asked somebody to help you before?
Jeste li pitali nekoga da vam pomogne prije?
What happened with that?
Što se dogodilo s tim?
There's no need you making the same mistake.
Nema potrebe da učinite istu pogrešku.
What is their perspective on getting help?
Što je vaša perspektiva o primanju pomoći?
Are they coming to ask you for help because someone told them they had to?
Jel dolaze k vama po pomoć zato jer im je neko rekao?
That jerk I'm married to said, you better get some help or I'm leaving.
I taj kreten s kojim ste oženjeni vam je rekao idi po pomoć ili te ja napuštam.
Are you coming on your own because you want to?
Ili dolaziš svojevoljno, zato jer želiš.
Yeah, what's your perspective of counseling?
Koja je vaša perspektiva o savjetovanju?
What's your self-image? How do you feel about yourself?
Kako imate sliku o sebi?
What are your religious resources or baggage?
Koji su vaši religijski resursi ili tereti?
As a religious or spiritual counselor, I want to know where you've come from religiously, spiritually.
Kao religijski i duhovni savjetnik ja želim znati odakle religijski potječete.
That makes a lot of difference in how we present things.
I o tome uvelike ovisi kako stvari prezentiramo.
Number one, I don't want to offend you by saying something that's offensive about where you've been or what you've done.
Ne želim reći nešto što bi vas uvrijedilo o tome što ste učinili ili gdje ste bili.
But I just need to know, what kind of baggage are you bringing with you?
Ali zainteresiran sam kakvu prtljagu nosite sa sobom.
What are your limitations? What do I feel like this is about as far as I can go?
Koje su ograničenja? Koliko ja daleko mogu ići?
What are your strengths?
Koje su vaše snage?
One of the things you'll discover as a counselor
ono što ćete otkriti kao savjetnik
is the minute you discover what someone's strengths are,
jest da upoznaćete kolike su nečije snage.
That's where you begin to work.
I onda počinjete raditi.
We don't work where they're the weakest.
Počinjemo
we don't work with them on their weak spot, where they're the weakest.
Ne radimo s njima tamo gdje su njihove slabe strane.
We take advantage of their strengths.
Mi koristimo njihove jakosti.
Now, if you have any questions about that, we're going to take a short break.
Ako imate kakve pitanja, uzet ćemo kratku pauzu.
Okay, are we ready?
Jesmo li spremni?
I think we are ready.
Mislim da jesmo spremni.
See how well she listens. What we've talked about so far
ono što smo do sada govorili
are the things that generally you and I have to put together to be an available counselor.
Ono što općenito ti ja trebamo biti da bi bili dostupni savjetnici.
Now, I use the word available in a very specific way.
I tu riječ dostupno koristim na jedan specifičan način.
That doesn't mean that I'm going to be in the same place that you are.
To ne znači da ću ja biti na istom mjestu na kojem ste vi.
We're going to be in the coffee shop together.
Bićemo u kafiću.
Or in a classroom together.
Ili u učionici.
Or the park together. Doesn't mean that at all.
Ili u parku. To ništa ne znači.
It just means that I have to be emotionally, mentally, and spiritually available to you.
To znači da ja moram biti emocionalno, mentalno i duhovno dostupan vama.
So when I agree to sit down and listen to what's going on with you so I may help you,
I dok ja sjedam i bivam dostupan vama da vas poslušam,
I've got to take everything personal out of my mind for just a little while.
moram sve ono osobno izbaciti iz svog uma za neko vrijeme.
I can't think about my family.
Ne mogu razmišljati o svojoj obitelji.
I can't think about the bills that I owe.
Ne mogu razmišljati o računima koje dugujem platiti.
I can't think about world events.
Ne mogu razmišljati o svjetskim događajima.
I have to think about you.
Moram razmišljati o vama.
I'm available to you for this particular piece of time.
Ja sam dostupan vama za ovo određeno vrijeme.
And when we finish, I'll pick all my stuff back up again.
I kada završimo, ja ću onda pokupiti sve svoje stvari.
But I can't be of good to the person I'm counseling if I'm constantly processing my own stuff.
Ali ja ne mogu biti dobar savjetnik osobi ako stalno razmišljam u svojoj glavi moje stvari.
And what the person you're working with does not ever want to hear
Jer osoba s kojom radim ima stvari koje ne želi čuti.
they don't ever want to hear from you this statement.
One ne žele čuti od vas ovakvu izjavu.
You think you have it bad. Let me tell you about me.
Ti misliš da imaš loš dan, daj da ti kažem moj.
Yeah, my kids have cavities. They need to go to the dentist. I can't. You think you got it bad? Listen to what I've got going on.
Moja djeca moraju ići zubaru, imaju karijes. Poslušaj moje stvari.
No, that doesn't count.
Znači
Can't do
to ne može to učiniti.
So Jesus said, this is the way that you get yourself ready so that you are available when someone seeks you out for help.
I to je ono što Isus kaže, da morate se pripremiti, da budete dostupni kada vas ljudi traže.
Now, one of the things that we know,
Jedna od stvari koje znamo,
and this comes from years and years and years of study,
a to dolazi iz godina i godina proučavanja.
and a lot of people having conversations,
I puno ljudi je imalo mnoge razgovore.
that all of us, regardless of our background, our history, our religious background, we all have 10 basic spiritual needs.
Bez obzira, svi mi iz koje pozadine došli, religijske, duhovne, svi mi imamo 10 tih osnovnih potreba.
And these spiritual needs come like little umbrellas that kind of overlap all of our problems.
I te duhovne potrebe su poput kišobrana koje prekrivaju sve naše probleme.
So I don't know the person that's going to come seek you out for help,
Ja ne znam osobu koja će doći i tražiti pomoć od vas,
but I can almost guarantee you that what they're going to ask for is one of these 10 things.
a mogu vam garantirati da će ona sigurno tražiti jednu od ovih 10 stvari.
And they come asking because these particular needs are not being met.
I ona će doći zato jer jedna od ovih 10 stvari, njihova ta potreba nije ispunjena.
Now the word we use is need, not want.
Riječ koju koristimo su potrebe, a ne želje.
They're not the things I want.
To nisu stvari koje ja želim.
They're the things I need.
To su stvari koje ja trebam.
Just like my body needs food and water and rest and exercise,
Kao što moje tijelo treba hranu, vodu, odmor, vježbu,
to be healthy.
da bi bilo zdravo.
My spirit needs some things to be healthy.
I moj duh treba stvari da bi bio zdrav.
So let's look at these 10 things that our spirit needs, not wants. It must have if it's going to be healthy.
I pogledamo ti 10 stvari koje moj duh treba. To nisu želje, nego to je ono što je potrebno.
The first one is a regular renewal of basic trust.
Prvo je učestala obnova temeljnog povjerenja.
Now, what is trust?
Što je povjerenje?
If you trust someone, what's going on? What are you feeling?
Kad imaš povjerenje u nekoga, koji to osjećaj?
Pardon? Safe. Safety.
Sigurnost.
That I'm safe with you, I trust you, I'm safe with you.
Siguran sam s tobom, vjerujem ti.
Yeah. Trust says I can expose myself emotionally and spiritually, and you will not do anything to hurt me.
Povjerenje kaže, ja se mogu razgoliti pred tobom emocionalno, duhovno, a da me nećeš povrijediti.
Now, a lot of the people that are going to seek you out for help have had trust destroyed in their life. They can't trust anyone anymore.
Mnogi ljudi koji će tražiti vašu pomoć imaju upravo to povjerenje koje je uništeno.
And that comes for a lot of reasons.
A to dolazi iz mnogih razloga.
But when it's missing in our life, that's when I'm going to come and ask for help.
I kada to nedostaje iz života, onda će ta osoba i tražiti pomoć.
I have trust issues, basic trust issues.
Imam te probleme temeljnog povjerenja.
One of the other basic spiritual needs we have is sound values. I need to know that I have good sound values to support and to guide my relationships.
Druga stvar je da imam zdrave vrijednosti. Moram imati te vrijednosti koje su za potporu, važne za potporu i upravljanje odnosima.
When whatever relationship I'm in, whether it's a child, a parent, a spouse, a friend, a co-worker, whatever that is, I need to know that I have sound values that will guide that relationship.
Bez obzira u kakvom odnosu se nalazimo, ja sam li dijete, roditelj, supružnik ili kolega na poslu, ja trebam imati zdrave vrijednosti.
And when those values get violated, I feel like, what do I do? How do I renew a relationship if the values are gone?
I kada su te vrijednosti poremećene, onda tražim rješenje kako da ih ponovo obnovim.
The next one, and this is a really important one, is a relationship with and commitment to. And this is a very psychological statement. Let me say it out loud and then you can translate it. Relationship with and commitment to an integrated object of devotion.
Relationship.
Is that what it says? It's not what they put me in?
Znači, odnos sa nečim i predanje ili obaveza sa tim objektom of devotion, s tim objektom štovanja.
Yeah.
Kako da integriramo se sa tim objektom štovanja.
What my spirit needs
Ono što moj duh treba
is a relationship with something beyond me.
Je da trebam taj odnos sa nečim što je iznad mene.
Now, as Christians, we know what that is.
A mi kao kršćani mi to znamo što je.
The object of devotion is who?
Jer taj objekt štovanja je tko?
It's God,
To je Bog,
Jesus.
Isus.
And when that's missing,
A kada to nedostaje,
I don't have an anchor.
ja nemam sidro.
So we need that. It's basic to us. We need it.
I zato to trebamo, to je nama osnovno.
We also need energizing experiences of transcendence. Now, let me explain what that means.
I također trebamo energirajuće, sam malo.
Number 4.
Trebamo redovita iskustva transcendentnoga koje nam daju energiju.
Yeah. Now, the two operative words in this sentence. One is transcendence.
Znači tu su dvije te glavne riječi, jedna je transcendentnost.
And that's when I'm able to get out of myself and into a relationship bigger than me.
To je kada izlazim iz samog sebe i ulazim u odnos sa nečim što je veće od mene samog.
Now, I want you to think for just a moment. We won't spend much time on this, but think for just a moment.
Razmislite samo za trenutak.
The last time that you can recall having what you would call a spiritual experience.
Sjetite se zadnjeg trenutka koje možete nazvati da ste imali duhovno iskustvo.
It may take different forms. What was that time?
Može to biti
You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me. It's private.
razni načini, ne morate reći, to je vaša privatna stvar.
But a spiritual experience is when I go, oh, where did that come from? That's bigger than me.
Kad kažemo duhovno iskustvo, odakle je to došlo, to je veće od mene.
I've just walked in the shadow of God for a moment.
Ja sam sa trenutak hodao u sjeni Boga.
That's transcendence, getting out of me and connecting with the world around me, God's creation and God himself.
I to je taj trenutak transcendentnosti kada sam izašao izvan sebe i bio sam povezan sa onim što je veće od mene.
Now the other operative word in that sentence is the word energizing.
A ta druga riječ je ono što daje energiju, što nas osnažuje.
Now what that means is when God created all of us,
Što to znači da kada nas je Bog stvorio,
he built into us this need for him.
on je ugradio nas tu potrebu za njim.
And what God promises, when you experience me, it will be bigger and better than anything you've ever experienced.
I ono što Bog obećaje da kada ga iskusimo, da će to biti bolje i veće od bilo čega drugoga.
And there are many people in our world who've never had that.
A postoje mnogi ljudi u svijetu koji nikad to nisu imali.
And there's an appetite inside for something they may not even know they need.
I oni imaju taj apetit, ali ne moraju znati da ga imaju.
We all need reconciliation and forgiveness.
Mi svi trebamo pomirenje i oprost.
We all need to know that we can be forgiven.
Mi svi moramo znati da nam može biti oprošteno.
And we need to know that we can reconcile things. We can be back together again, whatever that
I
is.
moramo znati da možemo biti pomireni.
We need regular renewal of self-acceptance and self-esteem.
Trebamo redovitu obnovu samoprihvaćanja i samopoštovanja.
I need to know that God made me special.
Ja moram znati da me Bog učinio posebnim.
We also need a regular renewal of hope.
Također trebamo redovitu obnovu nade.
We need to develop our higher self, or what we call the soul.
Trebamo razvijati višeg sebe, ili ono što nazivamo dušom.
We need a nurturing interaction with other people.
Trebamo interakciju sa ljudima koja nas razvija.
That means I need to have you. I need you.
A to znači da ja trebam tebe.
And whether you like it or not, you need me.
I bez obzira da li mene voliš ili ne, da li mi se sviđaš ili ne, ti me
We need
trebaš.
each other. We've got to have that. Our soul craves for that.
Mi trebamo jedan drugoga i to naše, za tim žude naše duše.
And the last basic spiritual need we have
I posljedna duhovna potreba koju imamo
is that we need to participate in a community of shared values.
trebamo sudjelovati u zajedništvu sa zajedničkim vrijednostima.
We need people around us who feel and believe the same thing we do.
Mi trebamo ljude oko sebe koji osjećaju i vjeruju isto.
Where do we find that?
A gdje to nalazimo?
Church? Maybe.
Crkva, možda.
Yeah, maybe. That's a basic need. It's not an option.
To je osnovna potreba, to nije opcija.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard, and you have too.
Ne znam koliko puta sam to čuo, a sigurno i vi.
I don't need church. I can worship God anywhere.
Ja ne trebam crkvu, ja mogu štovati Boga bilo gdje.
I can worship Him at the coast, in a creek bank. I can worship in a meadow. I can worship God anywhere.
Ja mogu štovati Boga i na morskoj obali, i na obali potoka, i na livadi.
I can do that.
I ja to mogu.
But many of us don't do that. We just say that.
Ali mnogi od nas to ne čine. Oni samo tako kažu.
We need each other.
Mi trebamo jedni druge.
Now, here's a hint.
I ovdje je ta ideja.
Whoever seeks you out for counseling, whoever comes to you and says, help me, I need your help.
Kogod da vam dođe i kaže, traži savjet, trebam pomoć.
I can almost promise you,
Mogu vam obećati
they're missing one or more of these 10 things in
da
their
njima
life.
u njihovom životu nedostaje jedna ili više od ovih 10 stvari.
So when I start figuring out what's going on,
I kada počinje shvaćati o čemu se tu radi,
what I can say is, maybe it's a trust issue,
Kada kažem možda je tu stvar povjerenja,
maybe it's you need forgiveness,
možda je potreba za opraštanje,
maybe it's a God thing you need.
možda trebaš taj moment sa Bogom.
And I can think of these 10 things because something is missing. I promise you it's one of these 10 things.
Kada razmišljate o tih 10 stvari, mogu vam obećati da je barem jedna od tih 10.
And like I mentioned to you, it's kind of like little umbrellas. Each one of these is a little umbrella because there are a lot of things underneath them.
I svako od tih stvari je poput jednog kišobrana i mnoge stvari ispod svakog tog kišobrana.
Does that make sense?
Ima li to smisla?
Yes? No?
Yes.
Da? Ne?
Okay. Let me find my slide here because we're going to...
Samo da pronađem slajd.
Okay. I need to... This is the one I'm going to, stuff. So I'm going to have to jump through it. So when I get to it, you tell me I'm there. Guiding assumptions.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
How about that? I know Croatian better than I thought.
Poznam hrvatski bolje nego što sam to znao.
No, I don't know it at all.
Ne znam ga uopće.
I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Ja samo znam brojati.
Now, we talked about what God puts in you and I, gets us ready to be the counselor, to be the hearer.
Razgovarali smo o tome što Bog je stavio u vas da budemo spremni i da možemo biti savjetnici.
The listener, the one who pays attention to someone who's struggling.
Onaj koji sluša, onaj koji pridaje pažnju onome koji ima poteškoće.
We know that someone who seeks us out
Znamo da onaj koji nas traži
is struggling with one or more of these 10 basic spiritual needs that we talked about.
se bori sa jednom od tih 10 osnovnih duhovnih potreba.
And there's some other assumptions you can begin to make about the person you're going to help.
I postoje druge pretpostavke koje možete učiniti vezano uz osobu koju pomažete.
And the first one of these is God is probably already at work in their life.
I prvo od tih je da je Bog već aktivan u životu te osobe.
They may not be aware of it.
Oni možda toga nisu svjesni.
How do you think they found you?
Što mislite kako su oni pronašli vas?
It wasn't an accident.
To nije bila slučajnost.
It wasn't a coincidence.
Ili nesreća.
I don't believe in coincidences.
Ne vjerujem u slučajnosti.
They found you because God wanted them to find you.
Oni su vas našli zato jer je Bog htio da vas nađe.
So I can assume that God is already at work in your life when you seek me out and say, John, do you mind listening to me for just a moment?
I zato trebamo pretpostaviti da je Bog već djeluje u njihovom životu kada oni kažu, Johne, ja trebam te nešto pitati.
So I can begin to listen to see what God is already telling them.
I zato trebam slušati već ono što njima Bog im govori.
Now here's a very important principle.
I ovdje je jedan važan princip.
Complex problems do not need complex solutions.
Složeni problemi ne trebaju složena rješenja.
Okay? You don't have to have this, great big complex answer to these great big complex problems.
Ne morate imati te složene odgovore na te velike složene probleme.
Sometimes the solutions are very simple.
Ponekad su rješenja vrlo jednostavna.
There's a YouTube video. Now I'm going to blank on his name.
Postoji jedan YouTube video.
I should never have said that because now it's gone. What's the guy's name that?
Ne mogu se sjetiti imena tog čovjeka.
I'll think of it later.
Sjetit ću se
On
kasnije.
TV he's a counselor.
On je na TV-u savjetnik.
And in the video, people come to see him and they only pay him $5 for 5 minutes.
I ljudi mu plaćaju $5 za 5 minuta.
What's his name? I'll think of it in a minute. It really is nice. It fits right here if I can ever think of it. It does. It fits real good. No, not Dr. Phil. It's a comedy. It's a comedy TV program. Bob
Bob Newhart.
Bob Newhart.
Bob
You heard
Newhart.
Bob Newhart? The comedian Bob
To
Newhart?
je komičar Bob Newhart.
On YouTube, you look
Na
up the
YouTube.
Bob Newhart show.
Na njegovom šovu.
It's an old TV show. And
To
you
je
look up,
stari šov.
Stop It.
I on je govorio stani.
That's the name of the episode, Stop It.
Znači tako se zove epizoda, stani.
And what he does is he charges $5
I ono što on radi, on naplaćuje $5
for 5 minutes,
za 5 minuta.
and his patient comes in and she goes all this horrible things going on in her life.
I dolazi pacijent i ona govori o svim tim užasnim problemima u životu.
Life's just coming to an end,
Život dolazi kraju.
and he says, stop it.
A on kaže, stani.
Okay, we're finished, goodbye.
I završili smo, doviđenja.
He says, that's all?
A on kaže, to je sve?
I said, yeah, just stop it.
A on kaže, da,
$5,
stani, samo stani.
please.
$5 molim.
But I have more I want to talk about.
Ali ja imam puno više toga za razgovarati.
$5, please, for 5 more minutes.
A $5 za još daljnjih 5 minuta.
So he goes through more ranting.
I ona još krene dalje to, razvijati priču.
And she says, stop it.
A on kaže, stani.
That's all?
To je
Yes,
sve?
just stop it.
Da, samo stani.
See you later.
A vidimo se kasnije.
You have to see the whole thing. But the point is, the problem is complex, but the answer was very simple. Just stop it.
I problem je bio vrlo složen, ali rješenje je bilo jednostavno. Samo stani.
So when someone gives you a very complex and an intricate problem, don't feel like you have to solve everything in there.
I zato kada vam neko dođe sa složenim problemom, nemojte misliti da trebate imati nekako složeno rješenje.
The solution may be very simple.
Rješenje može biti jednostavno.
Finding exceptions
Pronalaženje iznimaka
helps create solutions.
pomaže u stvaranju rješenja.
And what that means is there a different way to do it?
Što to znači? To znači da postoji li drugi način da se to učini?
Is there an exception to what you're doing that if you try that, it may be the solution?
I možda postoji iznimka drugog načina, da se na drugi način dođe do rješenja.
So as you're listening to problems that people share with you, listen for exceptions.
I tako dok slušate ljude, dok oni dijele o svojim problemima, razmišljate o iznimkama.
Maybe you can try it this way.
Možda možete probati ovo.
See what happens.
Da vidite što se može dogoditi.
The counselee, the person who's talking to you, is always changing.
Osoba koju savjetujete se uvijek mijenja.
So if I talk to you today on Friday,
I ako razgovaram s tobom danas na petak
and we agree we're going to talk next Friday,
i dogovorimo se da ćemo razgovarati sljedeći petak,
I have got to assume that your life is going to be different next Friday than it was today.
ja moram pretpostaviti da će vaš život biti drugačiji sljedeći petak nego što je to bio ovaj.
Because things change.
Zato jer se stvari mijenjaju.
We don't live in a vacuum.
Ne živimo u vakuumu.
Now then, the person that comes to see you is the expert in their life.
Osoba koja dolazi da vas vidi je stručnjak u svom životu.
They have lived their life.
Oni su živjeli svoj život.
They know all the small parts.
Oni znaju sve te detalje, male dijelove.
They're the expert.
Oni su stručnjaci. Ti nisi.
You're a listener.
Ti si slušatelj.
Let them define their goals.
Dopusti njima da definiraju ciljeve.
Let them be the expert.
Dopusti njima da budu stručnjaci.
Solutions must always be co-created.
Rješenja se uvijek moraju sukreirati.
If we decide we're going to try something, we both decide together that we're going to try it.
I ako oboje odlučimo pokušati nešto, onda to moramo zajedno odlučiti.
Now, part of that is self-preservation as a counselor.
Djelomice je to zbog toga da samog sebe sačuvam kao savjetnik.
What if I tell you, okay, here's what you do. You go out next week and you do this and this and this and this and this.
I što ako, recimo, kažem, odi sljedeći tjedan i učini ovo i ovo.
And you'll get better.
I bit će ti bolje.
And they don't.
I oni to ne učine.
They don't get better.
I oni ne bude im bolje.
Whose fault is it?
Čija je to onda krivnja?
They're going to look at you and say, I did exactly what you said.
I oni će pogledati na tebe i reći, ja sam učinio sve što si ti rekao.
And I don't feel any better.
A ja se ne osjećam bolje.
Then it's my fault.
To je onda postaje moja krivnja.
But if together we come up with a solution,
Ali ako zajedno postignemo rješenje
and we both decide together we're going to try something,
i oboje odlučimo da ćemo pokušati nešto novo,
then they have ownership over the results.
onda oni imaju vlasništvo nad rezultatima.
And that's what we need because they have to live with themselves.
I to je ono što oni trebaju. Trebaju živjeti sa tim.
We want them to have ownership.
Mi želimo da oni posjeduju to.
Now, the counselee, the person you're working with, is not the problem.
Osoba s kojom radite nije problem.
The problem is the problem.
Nego problem je problem.
Okay? Be very careful not to personalize anything anyone tells you.
Budite oprezni da ne uzimate osobno ono što vam savjetovani govori.
You may have many opinions about whether someone is going to be successful or not successful in changing their life.
Možete imati mnoga mišljenja o tome hoće li netko biti uspješan ili ne toliko uspješan u promjeni svog života.
But don't get focused on them.
A nemojte se fokusirati na njih.
Get focused on the problem.
Fokusirajte se na problem.
Because the problem has a solution.
Jer problem ima rješenje.
They can change if they choose to.
Oni se mogu promijeniti ako odluče tako.
Now, our focus always is on solutions.
Naš fokus je uvijek na rješenjima.
And here are the 3 rules about solutions.
A ovdje su 3 pravila vezano uz rješenje.
The first one, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Prvo je, ako nešto nije pokvareno, onda nemoj popravljati.
Now, what does that mean?
Što to znači?
If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Ako nije pokvareno, nemoj popravljati.
Are there times when people have talked to you and have talked about their problems, and you think, yeah, that's a problem, but I've seen one bigger than that?
Ljudi vam govore o svojem problemu, a onda vi kažete, a ja sam vidio veće probleme od toga.
Don't go looking for things.
Nemojte tražiti još stvari.
They'll present themselves.
One će se prezentirati same od sebe.
So don't fix something that's not broken.
Nemojte popravljati nešto što nije pokvareno.
The second thing is once you know what works,
druga stvar je jednom kada saznate što djeluje,
do it again.
radite to opet.
If it worked before, it'll work again.
Ako je to prije radilo, djelovalo, onda će djelovati opet.
Don't abandon those skills that you develop.
Nemojte napustiti te vještine koje ste razvili.
Keep using them.
Nastavite ih koristiti.
And the third rule,
A treće pravilo,
if it doesn't work, don't do it again.
ako nešto ne uspije, nemojte to ponoviti.
Do something different.
Učinite nešto drugačije.
Now, there have been many times that counselees and I have talked about things that when they tried them, they just did not work.
Ima vremena kada smo savjetovani i ja razgovarali i postojale su stvari koje jednostavno nisu djelovale.
For lots of reasons.
Iz raznih razloga.
So we just didn't do it that way again.
Zato nismo to ponavljali.
Let's try something different.
Nego smo pokušali nešto novo.
That didn't work.
Drugačije.
Now, it's really important that we talk about personal integrity and ethical guidelines.
Važno je razgovarati o osobnom integritetu i etičkim smjernicama.
So we began talking tonight about Jesus was a perfect example of what counseling needs to be and preparation for counseling needs to be.
Razgovarali smo o tome kako je nam Isus pokazao kakav treba biti savjetnik i kako se treba pripremiti za savjetnika.
And the things that you and I need to embrace a little bit as we get ready to listen to someone, to be someone's guide through their issues and their problems.
I ti i ja trebamo prihvatiti da slušamo nekog i da budemo njihov vodič u tim problemima.
And then we looked at just 10 basic spiritual needs that all of us have.
I onda pogledamo svih tih 10 osnovnih duhovnih potreba koje svi imamo.
And most of the time, the problems that the people bring to you to work with are going to be in that list of 10 things, basic spiritual needs.
I većina ljudi će biti unutar te liste tih 10 osnovnih duhovnih potreba.
Yeah. When we've prepared, when we've done our work, we've taken care of ourselves,
Kada smo se pripremili, učinili smo svoj rad, pripremili se.
when we decide what the issue may be,
I kada smo odlučili u čemu je stvar,
and we work with someone, we try to help them,
i kada radimo s nekim i pokušavamo pomoći,
and they get better
i njima bude bolje,
by them saying, I feel a lot better now.
zato jer kažu, ja se osjećam puno bolje.
Nothing makes you as a counselor feel better than that kind of statement.
A ništa nije bolje nego taj osjećaj nakon takve izjave.
Thank you for helping me through this.
Hvala ti što si mi pomogao proći kroz ovo.
Oh, I couldn't have done it without you.
Ne bi to mogao postići bez tebe.
And that's okay, they feel that way.
I to je u redu da se oni osjećaju tako.
But you've got to be careful not to put your ego in the middle of all that.
Ali trebaš biti oprezan da ne staviš svoj ego usred svega toga.
You've got to wipe the slate clean, like we talked about earlier.
Trebaš jednostavno to izbrisati.
It's very easy to become self-absorbed that I can help anybody do anything because they told me I could.
I možemo se lako ispuniti s tim da nitko ne može bez mene.
The first thing is you have to realize what are your limitations.
Prvo moraš shvatiti koje su tvoja ograničenja.
What can you do and what can you not do?
Što možeš učiniti, a što ne možeš učiniti.
Now, the hardest thing for any helper to do
A najteže za svakog onog koji pomaže
is to say, you know, I probably can't help you in that area. You may need to go talk to someone else.
Ja ti vjerojatno ne mogu pomoći tom području, ti bi morao razgovarati sa nekim drugim.
Oh, that's hard to do.
A to je jako teško.
After all, they sought you out. They came to find you.
A nakon toliko traženja oni su našli tebe.
And it's hard to listen to someone and say, you know, I just don't have the skill to help you with that.
I teško je slušati nekoga i zaključiti ja nemam vještine za pomoći.
Know what your limitations are.
Biti svjestan svojih ograničenja.
When I was working full time in my office,
Kada sam puno vremena radio u svojem uredu,
I understood how far I could go and how far I couldn't go with people's problems.
ja sam znao koliko daleko smijem, a koliko ne smijem ići sa ljudskim problemima.
I knew what kind of patients I could work with and what kind of patients I could not work with.
Znao sam sa kakvom vrstom pacijenata smijem raditi, a s kakvom ne smijem raditi.
And the temptation is to say, I can work with anybody.
A kušnja je da si kažemo ja mogu raditi sa svakim.
And I did pretty good with that.
I ja sam bio dobar u tome.
But I could not work with anyone who hurt small children.
Ali ja nisam mogao raditi sa nikim ko je povrijedio malu djecu.
Physically, emotionally, sexually, you describe it, you determine. If that's what they said, this is my problem, will you help me? I had to say, no, I cannot.
Fizički, emocionalno, seksualno, ako su oni opisali da je to njihov problem, ja tu nisam mogao pomoći.
And it's not that I didn't think they could get help.
I to ne znači da ja mislim da oni ne trebaju pomoć.
It just did something to me that prevented me from being a good helper.
Ima nešto u meni što mene priječi da budem dobar pomoćnik.
And I admire people who can take that population and work with it.
Ja se divim ljudima koji mogu preuzeti taj dio populacije i raditi sa njima.
But that's not me.
Ali to nisam ja.
Now, I was not abrupt and mean in how I said it.
Ja nisam bio zloban kada sam tako rekao.
I could always say, thank you for seeking me out, but I know someone who works in that specifically and can help you much better than I can.
Ja sam mogao reći, hvala ti što si me potražio, ali znam nekoga koji je puno bolji u tom području koji može raditi s tobom.
And I would refer them on to someone else.
I onda bi ih uputio na nekog drugog.
Now, counseling must be informed by some kind of theoretical framework.
Savjetovanje mora biti utemeljeno na nekakvom teoretskom okviru.
Now, it doesn't mean you have to be a specialist in Freudian psychology or Jungian psychology or Gestalt, or you have to be a client-centered therapist. You don't have to go through all that stuff. You don't have to do that.
To ne znači da morate biti specijalista u psihologiji Freuda ili Junga ili u Gestaltu. Ne morate prolaziti kroz sve to.
But you will have to come to some understanding, how do people change?
Ali morate doći do nekog razumijevanja kako se ljudi mijenjaju.
And what is my role as a helper in helping people change?
I koja je moja uloga kao pomoćnika da se ljudi promijene.
And that will give you some framework for you to work in.
I to će vam dati nekakav okvir unutar kojeg ćete raditi.
The rights of the counselee, the person you're working with, are always primary.
Prava savjetovanog su uvijek primarna.
If anything you're going to do or say is going to violate those rights, don't do it or don't say it.
Ako će bilo što nešto učiniti što će naštetiti njihovim pravima, nemojte niti izgovoriti, niti učiniti.
You cannot violate their rights because you think they're wrong.
Ne možete naštetiti njihovim pravima iako mislite da su u krivu.
Make every effort to refrain from dual relationships.
Učinite sav napor da se suzdržite od dvostrukih odnosa.
Now, this is harder when we're working in a church context.
Ovo je teže kada radimo u crkvenom kontekstu.
Because we have dual relationships.
Zato jer imamo dvostruke odnose.
We're going to be a teacher as well as a counselor.
Bićemo i učitelji isto kao i savjetnici.
We're going to be a friend as well as a counselor.
Bićemo i prijatelji isto kao i savjetnici.
We're going to have dual roles.
Imaćemo te dvostruke uloge.
But just remember one thing.
Ali zapamtite samo jedno.
Your clients, not your clients, but the people that you work with, the people that you help. Ali
ljudi s kojima radite, s kojima pomažete.
Once they disclose some very personal and private information with you about themselves.
Kada vam se otvore vezano uz njihove privatne stvari,
are going to see you very differently when they see you at church.
A oni će to drugačije to će izgledati nego kada se susretnu sa crkvom.
And you've got to help them through that to know you're not going to disclose anything they tell you to anybody else.
I morate im reći da ništa od toga što su vam rekli nećete razotkriti.
No one else will know your secrets.
Nitko drugi neće znati vaše tajne.
And that helps that relationship avoid being dual relationship where we're having two things going on.
I to će spriječiti da vaš odnos bude dvostruk.
And be aware that the patient, your person that you're working with knows that there are limitations to what you can do.
I osigurajte da savjetovani pozna svoje odgovornosti i ograničenje.
Okay, yeah. As a helper, it is, how do I say this strongly enough?
Kako da ovo kažem što snažnije mogu?
As someone's counselor, you're going to be made available to people's most intimate secrets and personal issues and personal problems.
Kao savjetnik upoznaćete se sa najintimnijim, najtajnovitijim stvarima u životu tih ljudi.
And for the first time in their life, someone may have listened to them express something as deep as that.
I možda će ti ljudi prvi puta doživjeti da ih je neko poslušao na tako dubokoj razini.
And they may have feelings for you that go beyond counseling.
I oni mogu dobiti osjećaj koji idu van savjetovanja.
And this is where the word boundaries comes in.
I ovdje je kada riječ granice dolaze.
You may not reciprocate any feeling or anything that would indicate I have more for you than just counseling with you.
Tu mora biti granica kada osjetite da ta osoba ima više osjećaja nego što bi trebala imati unutar savjetovanja.
Romantic or sexual experiences are off limits totally off limits.
Romantični i seksualni osjećaji trebaju biti van uopće van razmišljanja.
Now that may be easier for you as the counselor, as the helper, than it will be for someone that you're trying to help.
To je možda lakše vama kao savjetniku nego onome kojem se daje savjet.
Because they're going to feel very, very connected to you in ways they've never felt before.
Jer oni će osjetiti tu povezanost koju nikada prije nisu osjetili.
The next to last time we're going to talk about this is don't try to use techniques or things that you don't feel good about. You don't have any training in or you don't feel good about.
I zadnje, ne koristite tehnike u kojima se ne osjećate dovoljno dobro ili osposobljeno.
Now, the worst counselor or the worst psychologist is someone who's read one book and decided to do everything that way.
Najgori savjetnik je onaj koji je pročitao jednu knjigu i onda odlučio sve raditi u skladu sa savjetom te knjige.
I read a good book and we're going to try it on you, okay?
Pročitao sam dobru knjigu i sad ćemo to probati na tebi.
If you don't feel comfortable, don't do it.
Ako se ne osjećate udobno, onda nemojte to učiniti.
And then here's the most important thing.
I onda je sada najvažnija stvar.
Please understand what we call the power differential.
Potrebno je shvatiti razliku u moći.
In the counseling room or the counseling park or the counseling coffee shop or wherever you are.
Gdje god da se vas dvoje nalazite u savjetovanju.
Now, let me explain what I mean by that.
Da objasnim što mislim pod tim.
When someone comes to you and says, please help me, please listen to me and help me.
Kada vam netko dođe i kaže, molim te, pomozi mi, molim te, saslušaj me.
What they have done is they have given you all of their power.
Što to znači da su vam oni dali svu moć.
And you're the most powerful person in their life right then.
I u tom trenutku vi ste najmoćnija osoba u njihovom životu.
Okay? And you should be. That's the way the relationship works.
I trebali bi biti tako. Tako taj odnos funkcionira.
But don't ever forget that that's how it works.
I nikad nemojte zaboraviti da to tako funkcionira.
And don't abuse someone because you have all the power.
Nemojte iskoristiti to, zloupotrijebiti zato što imate svu moć.
Now, let me give you a couple of practical things about that.
Da vam dam nekoliko praktičnih primjera.
The hardest people in the world to work with
Najteži ljudi s kojima se može raditi
are adolescents or
su
teenagers.
adolescenti ili tineđeri.
They're the most blessed people to work with
Oni su najblagoslovljeniji ljudi s kojima se može raditi.
because they have so much to offer and so much to give.
Jer imaju toliko toga da ponude i daju.
But they are so stubborn.
Ali su toliko tvrdoglavni.
They are so ego-centered. They have all the answers themselves.
Toliko su egocentrični da imaju sve odgovore za sebe.
Now, in my office, I never had a teenager come to see me because they wanted to.
Ja u svom uredu nikad nisam imao tineđera koji je želio mene vidjeti.
They only came because their mother brought them by their ears to see me.
Oni su došli samo zato jer ih je mama dovukla za uho.
And the mama would say, fix him.
I mama bi rekla, popravi ga.
Well, I don't want to fix him,
A, ne želim ga popraviti.
but fix him.
Ali mama kaže, popravi ga.
I broke him, you fix him.
Ja sam ga pokvario, ti ga sad popravi.
So, the first couple of sessions with teenagers in my office was a power struggle every time.
Prva dva sastanka savjetovanja sa tineđerima je bila ta borba moći.
I want to work with you, I would say.
Ja bih rekao, ja želim raditi s tobom.
And they would say, I'm not going to work with you.
A oni bi rekli, ja ne želim raditi s tobom.
I'd rather be home playing video games.
Ja bi radije bio doma igrati video igrice.
I don't want to be here with you.
Ja ne želim biti ovdje s tobom.
So we butt heads and we struggled
I tako bi se sukobljavali i borili.
until finally we would negotiate that I had all the power.
I tako bi kroz pregovore shvatili da ja imam svu moć.
Now, here's one way that I would do that.
Ovdje je jedan način kako bi ja to napravio.
In my office, I had a chair, a big overstuffed chair, like you would think that would be any counselor's office, had big arms, and it was good and cush.
Ja sam imao u svom uredu jednu veliku fotelju sa velikim zaslonom u kojem bi bilo udobno.
I had a table beside my chair.
Imam stol pokraj fotelje.
Put my coffee cup.
Tamo bi stavio svoju šalicu s kavom.
Had my pens and my tablet there.
Imao bi svoje olovke, penkale i tablet.
And across from me was a sofa.
A preko puta mene je kauč.
I sat in my chair.
Ja sam sjedio u svojoj stolici.
My client sat on the sofa.
A moj klijent je sjedio na kauču.
My chair was higher than the sofa.
A moja stolica je bila povišena u odnosu na kauč.
Not much.
Ne puno.
Just enough to where I was higher than my patient was.
Ali dovoljno da budem na više pozicije od pacijenta.
It wasn't like a throne in the ground. It was just subtle, but it was there.
Nije to bilo kao prijestolje, ali to je onako bilo suptilno povišenje.
The symbol was, I have all the power.
A simbol je bio da ja imam svu moć.
You don't have any power.
A ti nemaš nikakvu.
And I don't mean that in a nasty way.
A ne mislim to na zločest način.
But the quicker we get that out of the way, the better we can work.
Ali što brže možemo proći kroz to bolje možemo raditi.
Now with teenagers, when they would come into my office,
A sa tinejdžerima kad bi oni došli u moj ured,
I had some that would run fast
oni bi brzo potrčali
to sit in my chair
i da sjednu u moju stolicu.
and make me sit on the sofa.
A oni bi mene stavili na kauč.
And they would say, well, Dr. Cooke, what do you want to talk about today?
I onda bi sjeli i rekli, Dr. Cooke, o čemu želite razgovarati danas?
I said, the first thing we want to talk about is you getting out of my chair.
Prva stvar o kojoj ćemo razgovarati je da se digneš sa moje stolice.
It's my chair.
To je moja stolica.
And they would go, oh, let's talk. And we could play with that for a little bit.
I onda bi se neko vrijeme igrali s tim.
But the session never would work until they understood that I was in charge.
Ali savjetovanje nikad ne bi funkcioniralo da dok oni ne shvate da sam ja taj koji imam glavnu ulogu.
That is just a given in a psychological setting.
To je jednostavno tako postavljeno u tom psihološkom sustavu.
What we have to remember is I can never, ever abuse that.
A ono što se moramo podsjetiti da to nikad ne smijem zloupotrijebiti.
I can never do anything to assert that power in a negative way.
Ja nikad ne smijem primijeniti tu moć u negativnom smjeru.
That's against the rules.
To je protivno pravilima.
And I need to know what the power differential is, that I have it.
Ja moram znati tu razliku moći koju imam.
And I'm going to use it to help you get better.
I ja ću to upotrijebiti kako bi tebi bilo bolje.
We do the same thing. I've worked a lot with kindergarten teachers.
Puno sam radio sa odgojiteljicama ili odgojiteljima u vrtiću.
And the thing that kindergarten teachers hate more than anything in the world
A oni imaju nešto što najviše mrze na svijetu,
are when parents come to visit them.
je to kada im roditelji dođu u posjet.
They never come because it's good.
Oni nikad ne dolaze zato što je dobro.
They come because they're angry.
Dolaze onda kada su bijesni.
You didn't treat my child right.
Ti nisi postupao prema mom djetetu ispravno.
You don't call my child enough.
Ti ne pozivaš dovoljno moje dijete.
Fill in the blank.
I ti ne činiš, ispunite prazninu.
And so what I would tell kindergarten teachers to do, and the furniture in a kindergarten room is little bitty furniture, right?
I ono što bi ja rekao odgojiteljicama i odgojiteljima je da znate kako u vrtiću namještaj je mali.
And that's a design, because children are little bitty.
Zato jer su djeca mala.
So teachers, more times than not, have to get little bitty
I
to
zato
teach them.
odgojitelji trebaju postati mali.
I would always tell kindergarten teachers,
Ja bih im uvijek rekao,
when parents are going to come visit you,
kada roditelji dođu u posjet,
you get the big chair,
ti uzmi veliku stolicu,
and you put mama and papa in the little chairs,
a roditelje stavi na male stolice.
where they're sitting with their knees up.
I da im strše koljena u zraku,
I'm in the big chair.
a ja sam u velikoj stolici.
I have all the power.
Ja imam svu moć.
It's amazing how just that little bit
I nevjerojatno je koliko je to malo važno.
diffuses everything.
I to onda sve splasne.
It's kind of hard to be mad at you if I'm looking up at you all the time.
I teško je biti bijesan na nekoga koje s niskoga gledaš.
The counseling relationship is a very, very special, intimate, delicate relationship.
Savjetovanje je vrlo posebno, intimno, delikatno djelovanje, rad.
People are going to hand us a very, very delicate part of their life.
Ljudi će nam dati svoje delikatne dijelove života.
And we've got to understand that we have all the power and we can destroy it,
I moramo znati da imamo svu moć da ili uništimo,
or we can help create something good come from that.
ili možemo učiniti da nešto dobro proizađe iz toga.
And good is always the best outcome.
I dobro je uvijek najbolji ishod.
Okay? Let's look at what we're going to look at tomorrow and then we'll let you go.
Gledamo što ćemo raditi sutra i onda možemo ići.
We're going to talk about stress.
Razgovarat ćemo o stresu.
We're going to talk about different counseling skills that we can do.
Različitim vještinama savjetovanja.
Where do I start? When somebody asks me to talk, where do I start with that conversation?
Kada netko zatraži pomoć, kako da započnem?
How do I keep it focused on what we're working on?
Kako da održim stvari fokusiranima na ono što me radim.
And we're going to talk about those skills tomorrow.
I o tim vještinama ćemo razgovarati sutra.
And then we're going to wrap it all up and be finished by 11.
Sve ćemo ono
Start at 9,
zaključiti.
we'll finish by 11, okay?
Počet ćemo u 9 ujutro, završiti u 11.
And I'm going to do my best to finish by 11.
I učinit ću sve što mogu da završim u 11.
Thank you for coming.
Hvala vam za dolazak.
Thank you for your trust.
Hvala vam za povjerenje.
I wish you a wonderful evening,
Želim vam divnu večer
and I will see you tomorrow.
i vidimo se sutra.
Bye-bye.
Doviđenja.
Excellent.
Odlično.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Well, it's good to see you back this morning, bright-eyed.
Drago mi je da ste se došli ovamo opet, da ste se došli otvorenih očiju.
Saturday morning is made for meditation.
Subota ujutro je za meditaciju, za promišljanja.
So if in the middle of our talking you close your eyes and seem to be distant, I will assume you're talking to God.
I ukoliko, dakle, u sredini predavanja zatvorite oči i malo odlutate, ja ću pretpostaviti da ste u molitvi s Bogom.
But God does not understand snoring.
Ali Bog ne razumije govor hrkanja.
So let's review a little bit of what we talked about last night.
Prođimo na kratko ono što smo sinoć razgovarali.
We talked about our role as a pastoral counselor.
Razgovarali smo o ulogi pastoralnog savjetnika.
Our role is different than the role of preacher.
Naša je uloga drugačija od uloge propovjednika.
Or expositor, someone who stands in the pulpit and explains the Word of God.
Ili onoga koji stoji za propovidaonom i poučava.
Our role as a pastoral counselor is to meet with people one-on-one.
Naša uloga kao pastoralnog savjetnika je da se susretnemo s ljudima oči u oči
And to help them through their spiritual struggles.
I da im pomognemo kroz njihove duhovne borbe.
And those struggles manifest themselves
I te se borbe očituju
physically,
fizički,
emotionally,
osjećajno ili emocionalno,
mentally,
mentalno, misaono
and spiritually.
i duhovno.
And our job is to listen
I naša je uloga da slušamo
and offer help.
i ponudimo pomoć.
And we talked about at the beginning how Jesus is our perfect model who explained to us and showed us how to do that all through the Gospels.
Na početku želim uzeti Isusa kao našeg savršenog modela koji će nam objasniti ove stvari.
We talked about things that we can do
Razgovarali smo o stvarima koje možemo učiniti
and some things that we cannot do.
i o stvarima koje ne možemo učiniti.
You know, if you have a degree in psychology or social work,
Ako imate diplomu iz socijalnog rada ili psihologije,
then your training is a little higher than that of pastoral care.
tada je vaš trening ili učenje više nego pastoralno savjetovanje.
And you've been trained in some skills that we don't train in pastoral care.
I tada ste uvježbani u određenim vještinama koje mi ovdje ne poučavamo u pastoralnom savjetovanju.
And you certainly are free to use those skills if you've been trained in them.
I koliko ih znate, te vještine, slobodni ste ih i upotrijebiti.
But that aside, I have the ability as God's voice and ears and hands to listen to someone and help them through their struggles.
Ali pustimo sada to po strani. Ja kao osoba imam određene vještine koje mi je Bog dao da slušam nekoga i da budem uz njega.
And last night, we talked more theoretically than practically.
I jučer, sinoć smo razgovarali više na teoretskoj bazi nego na praktičnom.
But today we're going to roll our sleeves up.
Ali sada ćemo, što se kaže, zategnuti rukave
and look more at the practical side. How do I do this?
I pogledati više u tu teoretsku sferu. Kako ja to mogu učiniti? Što to znači u praktičnu, je isto.
I know what I should be doing. I know the theory behind it.
Ja znam što bi ja trebao učiniti, ja znam teoriju iza svega toga.
But how do I do it?
Ali kako ću ja to učiniti?
And I'm glad you asked that question.
I drago mi je da ste postavili to pitanje.
Because here goes.
Dakle, počinjemo.
There are certain things that I need to have if I'm going to develop good counseling skills.
Postoje neke stvari koje trebam se izobraziti kako bi dobio dobre vještine.
The first thing I need to be able to do
Prva stvar koju trebam učiniti
is understand what feelings are.
Moram znati što su osjećaji.
Now, this is a word that gets used a lot of different ways, is it not?
Osjećaji su riječ koja se danas koristi na razne načine.
So, what are feelings?
Što su osjećaji?
How would you define feelings?
Kako biste ih vi definirali?
We all have them.
Svi ih posjedujemo.
Some are positive, some are not so positive.
Neki su pozitivni, neki su manje pozitivni.
But what are they? What are feelings?
Što su osjećaji?
Give me an example of a feeling word.
Our way of responding to the world around us.
Okay, it's a response, isn't it?
Kako odgovaramo na neke događaje, na svijet oko
We encounter something in our world and we have a response to that.
Nešto imamo neki doživljaj i onda kako odgovaramo na taj doživljaj.
And feelings The reason I said a while ago, some are positive, some are not so positive, I don't think there are any bad feelings.
Ja osobno, iako postoje pozitivni i manje pozitivni, ali ja smatram da ne postoje loši osjećaji.
There are feelings that don't feel good.
Postoje osjećaji od kojih se ne osjećamo dobro.
Some are very painful.
Neki su i bolni, vrlo bolni.
But they're not bad.
Ali nisu loši.
Because in order to have feelings, we have to be alive.
Jer ako bi imali osjećaje, moramo biti živi. Dakle, to je pretpostavka da imamo osjećaje, da smo živi.
So we encounter something in our world, in our environment, and we have and here goes the big word.
Mi nečim se susretnemo u našem životu.
We have a neurochemical response to that occasion.
Imamo neurokemijski odgovor na taj događaj.
Okay? You come home during the day and you're hungry.
Dođete kući nakon cijelodnevnog izlaska, vratite se i gladni ste.
And for whatever reason there's someone at your house that prepares your meal for you.
I iz nekog razloga netko je u vašoj kući pripremio obrok.
And coming home you were very grumpy.
I kako dolazite kući, dosta ste loše raspoloženi.
And you walk to the door and you smell something and goes,
I prođete kroz vrata i osjetite odličan miris.
That smells wonderful.
Prekrasno.
I can't wait to eat now.
Pa jedva čekam da ću jesti sada, sjesti za stol.
So what changed to make me go from grumpy to...
Što se je promijenilo u tom osjećaju? Prvo da sam bio loše namrgođen kada sam došao, pa do tog jedne veselja, jedne radosti.
You haven't eaten yet.
Još niste jeli.
What made the change?
Što se promijenilo?
Change in the environment.
Environment.
Promjena okružja.
Our need was met. We had a need and it was met in a good way.
Potreba je zadovoljena.
Imagination, that's right.
Imaginacija, razmišljanje.
Yeah, when I'm cooking, Andrew has to use her imagination a lot.
Kad ja kuham, moja supruga mora jako puno imaginacije, promišljenja imati.
The first part is, what is this?
Prvi dio je, šta je to?
I'll say, it's good, you taste it, you'll like it.
Ti ćeš kad probaš, bit će dobro.
But at my imagination, my environment changes, I expect something to happen, I have a neurochemical, my brain does some changes, and now I have a different feeling.
Pri promjeni mojih okolnosti postoji ta neurokemijska promjena u mene koja uzrokuje jednu promjenu raspoloženja u mene.
Most of the people that you and I are going to work with as counselors are going to talk to us about their feelings.
Najčešće u radu sa ljudima, u našem pastoralnom savjetovanju, ljudi će govoriti o svojim osjećajima.
And we have to understand where those feelings come from.
I moramo razumjeti odakle ti osjećaji dolaze.
Some feelings are immediate. I encounter something and I have a feeling immediately.
Neki su osjećaji trenutni, ja se susretnem s nečim i u tom trenutku imam osjećaje na nešto, prema nečemu.
Some feelings are habitual.
Neki su osjećaji stečeni.
I feel this way all the time.
Ja se tako osjećam cijelo vrijeme.
Regardless of what's going on.
Bez obzira što se događalo.
You familiar with the story of Winnie the Pooh?
Poznajete li Winnie Pooha i priču o njemu?
The funny little bear?
On je smiješan medvjed.
And his friend Eeyore?
I njegov prijatelj Eeyore.
What follows Eeyore around?
Što se događa sa tim Eeyoreom?
It's above his head most of
Što
the
se
time.
najčešće oko njegove glave? Mušice, ali tako? A cloud.
A cloud.
Aha.
And not a good cloud.
I to nije dobar oblak.
When they started making cartoons of Winnie the Pooh,
kada su počeli raditi stripove, to je crtiće o Winnie Pooh,
the voice of Eeyore
glas Eeyora
would be, oh my.
Koji je stalno nešto mrmljao.
What a wonderful day, Pooh.
Kako lijepi dan, Pooh.
Isn't it nice to be alive?
Je li lijepo biti živ?
Eeyore had learned to be sad.
Ior je naučio biti tužan.
That was a habitual feeling.
To je bilo to njegovo stečeno, jednostavno, po navici se tako ponašao.
No matter what happens, Eeyore is going to feel,
Što god da se događalo, on je uvijek bio, ja mislim da smo mi imali slično nešto, štrumfovi, ali grunđalo, gunđalo, da.
Do you have friends like that?
Mrgut, we had a cartoon like this, not Winnie Pooh, but here was Strumps, or somehow, I don't know if it
That's
is
okay,
in the
it's the
States,
same thing.
But he was always, you know.
You have friends like that?
Imate li takve prijatelje?
I have friends. I have friends like that.
Ja imam takve prijatelje.
I have one friend that if he got $1 million
Imam jednog prijatelja koji da dobije $1 milion
from out of nowhere,
od nikuda.
he'd go, oh my, it's not $1,000,001.
Nije $1,000,001. Uvijek je.
I need $1,000,001.
Treba $1,000,001.
Never pleased, never happy.
Nikad nije zadovoljan, nikad nije radostan.
And the reason I bring that up
I zašto to govorim?
is it's important for us as counselors to understand is the feeling that our person that we're going to work with, is it a quick response to something or has it been something that's going on for a long time?
I želim zato naglasiti to jer da razlučimo radi li se o nekakvom trenutnom odgovoru na neku situaciju ili se radi već o jednom događaju koji ima svoj niz i duljinu trajanja ili stečena jedna navika.
Because that will determine how I work with them.
Jer to će odrediti kako ću ja sada se pristupiti tom čovjeku.
Now, when we have feelings, how do we express those?
Kad imamo osjećaje, kako ih izražavamo?
What's involved in an expression of a feeling?
Što je uključeno u izražavanje osjećaja?
Our face, our countenance, yes.
Znači izrazi lica.
What happens with our character Eeyore, his face doesn't match the words he says about how he feels.
I evo, kod tog Iora najčešće njegov izraz lica ne odražava ono što on govori, kako se osjeća.
So our countenance, our face, our body language,
naš izražaj tijela govori, izražava u biti naše raspoloženje.
If we're sad or upset, our body language closes down.
Kada smo tužni, pogibamo se.
How do we respond when we're angry?
Kako reagiramo kada smo ljuti, srditi?
What's our face do?
Što radi, čini naše lice? Red.
Yeah, real hard. You know when I'm angry.
Eyebrows.
What does our body do?
Što čini naše tijelo?
It prepares for battle.
Pripravlja se za bitku.
We know we're angry.
Znamo da smo ljuti.
If I'm happy, what do I look like?
Kada sam sretan, radostan, kako izgledam?
I'm pleased.
Drago mi je.
You can tell when you look at someone who's happy.
Možeš prepoznati nekoga koji je radostan.
Now, as a counselor, what you want to do is when someone says, this is how I feel,
kao pastoralni savjetnik, kada vam netko želi izraziti i kazati ovo je kako se osjećam,
what you want to watch for is does my face and my body match my words?
Gledajte na izraze lica, izraze tijela, govor tijela, da li je u skladu sa onim što ta osoba govori.
That helps you know where to start.
To će vam pomoći da možete početi.
Now, the solution is not always to make someone happy.
Solucija nije uvijek da nekoga učinimo sretnim.
In fact, you cannot make anyone feel anything.
Vi ne možete učiniti da osoba druga nešto osjeća.
The way they feel is their responsibility, not yours.
Kako će se oni osjećati to je njihova odgovornost, ne vaša.
Now, the next thing is, does talking help?
Sljedeća stvar je, pomaže li razgovor? Ili ovdje je prevedeno kako razgovor pomaže.
Does it help to talk about something?
Pomaže li razgovarati o nečemu?
Yes, it does.
Da.
It absolutely does. In fact, I made my living for many, many years talking.
Ja zarađujem tako što razgovaram.
Sometimes I had things to say, sometimes I didn't have anything to say.
Neki puta mogu nešto kazati, a neki puta nemam što za reći.
But there's something cleansing,
Ali postoji nešto pročišćujuće
and there's something about becoming aware the more I talk about things.
i postoji nešto na što sam postajem svjestan razgovarajući.
Because I have to put words on how I feel.
Jer moram upotrijebiti riječi o onome kako se osjećam.
Now, in one of my graduate classes,
Jedna od mojih semestara, to jest classes, satova.
I asked my students to make a list of all the feeling words they use.
Tražio sam od studenata da mi napišu sve osjećaje riječi osjećaja koje upotrebljavaju ili riječi za osjećaje koje upotrebljavaju.
All the feeling words they could think of, they use to write them down.
Da napišu to na jedan papir.
When I asked them to turn it in or to show me what they had,
kad sam ih upitao da mi pokažu što su napisali,
some people had a list of 5.
Neki ljudi su imali listu od 5.
That's a pretty short list, isn't it?
To je jedna kratka ovako lista.
Some had 10 or 15.
Neki 10.
And some took a lot of pride in the fact that they had 20.
I neki su se ponosili time da su imali i 20.
And then I gave them my list.
I onda sam im dao svoju listu.
Of feeling words.
Od riječi koje izražavaju osjećaje.
And I had 275.
Bilo je 275 riječi.
Now, if all I have in my vocabulary is 5 words,
ako je sve što imam u svom govoru 5 riječi,
how will I express my feelings?
Za osjećaje, kako ću ja izraziti svoje osjećaje?
I will express it in one of those 5 words.
Izrazit ću ih na jedan od tih 5 riječi.
I may not be angry at all.
Možda neću uopće biti ljut, srdit.
I may just be perturbed.
Može biti da sam pod opterećenjem.
I may just be upset.
Možda sam samo uzbuđen.
But all I have is angry.
Ali sve što imam je srdžba, ljutnja.
So that's what I'll use.
To je ono što upotrebljavam, tu riječ.
So part of our job,
dio našeg posla,
is to help our clients, our patients, our friends that we're working with develop a feelings vocabulary.
Jest da pomognemo našem klijentu da razvije taj vokabular, govor o svojim osjećajima, razne riječi kojim će izraziti svoje osjećaje.
It's amazing how I can change how I feel inside when I use the right word to describe what I'm feeling.
Jako je zanimljivo kako se ljudi mijenjaju kada shvate da mogu pravom riječi izraziti svoje osjećaje.
Because some words are very powerful. Some feeling words are really powerful.
Neki su osjećaji vrlo snažni.
And some are just subtle, little bitty words.
Neki su mali, onako sitni.
And that helps me understand what I'm feeling.
I to mi pomaže razumjeti kako se osjećam.
And that's where talking helps.
I zato razgovor pomaže.
Because I can say, is there anything else that you can describe besides being angry?
Kada ja upitam klijenta, postoji li još nešto što bi mogli opisati osim što ste srditi?
And they can say, well,
kažu da.
I feel misunderstood.
Mislim da me ne razumiju.
You feel misunderstood.
Osjećate se da niste
So that makes you angry.
I to vas onda čini srditim, ljutim.
What are you misunderstood about?
Pa što mislite da vas ljudi ne razumiju?
The way I feel about things, people don't understand.
Ljudi ne razumiju kako se osjećam.
So you don't feel understood at all about how you feel.
Dakle, uopće smatraš da te ne razumiju kako se osjećaš.
No, well, what else could you say that would help people understand what's going on inside your heart?
Pa kako ćeš još objasniti ljudima stvari koje se događaju u tvojem srcu?
Well, I'm really disappointed when my teacher doesn't call on me at school.
Vrlo sam razočaran kada me učitelj u školi ne prozove.
I think I have the right answer, but he won't call on me.
Mislim da imam pravi odgovor, ali neće me prozvati.
So it makes me feel misunderstood.
I onda se smatram neshvaćenim.
So how do we work with that?
Pa kako ćemo sad raditi s tim?
So I go from a very angry person to someone who is working out their problem.
I onda dolazi do promjene od osobe koja je vrlo ljuta do načina kako ćemo izaći iz tog problema.
And what we call, what I just went through, we call that active listening.
I ovo što smo sada objasnili se naziva aktivnim slušanjem.
I hear what you say.
Čujem što si rekao.
I hold the mirror up to you and say it back to you.
Stavljam ispred tebe zrcalo da možeš vidjeti što govoriš.
And you tell me if I'm right or if I'm wrong.
I ti mi reci jesam li u pravu ili nisam.
I don't get it right all the time.
Ne možemo uvijek ispravno sve shvatiti.
But the person I'm working with will tell me.
Ali ta osoba upravo s kojom radim će mi to objasniti.
So I don't really feel misunderstood. I feel kind of neglected.
Ne smatram se neshvaćenim ili da me ne razumiju. Mislim da ne obaziru pažnju na mene.
So when you feel neglected, you get angry.
Kada se ne obazire pažnja na tebe, se osjećaš, počinješ biti ljut.
Yeah, because I think I'm important.
Da, jer ja mislim da sam važan.
So you're feeling important, but nobody else lets you feel that way.
Znači, smatraš se važnim, ali nitko to drugi ne primjećuje.
That's right. So what else can we do?
Pa šta još možemo učiniti?
And I have not changed anything.
Nisam ništa promijenio.
I have not said anything they haven't said to me.
Ništa nisam rekao što on meni nije rekao.
But in an active sense, I let them work through the problem.
Ali na aktivan način ja sam ga doveo da radi na tom problemu.
Now, that's different than when you go to the doctor.
To je sasvim drugačije nego kad odete liječniku.
And you say, doctor, my shoulder hurts.
O, doktore, boli me rame.
It especially hurts when I do this.
Osobito kada podignem.
And the doctor says, well, don't do that.
Pa onda doktor veli, nemoj to raditi.
See you later.
Vidimo se.
Solution, we fixed it.
Evo ga, našli smo rješenje i to je to.
Counseling is not that way.
Savjetovanje nije te vrste.
Help them come to their own conclusions.
Pomozite im da dođu do vlastitih odgovora.
And the last one is passive listening.
I zadnje je pasivno slušanje.
Now, passive in this case is not a bad word.
Pasivno u ovom slučaju nije loša riječ.
Let me give you an example there.
Dajte da vam dam jedan primjer.
You know, I told you last night that when someone says, please, I need someone to talk to.
Sinoć smo razgovarali o tome, kad neko dođe k vama, pa trebam razgovarati s tobom.
And I say, fine, I will love to talk to you. Tell me what's going on.
Volio bi s tobom razgovarati, pa objasni mi što se događa.
And they give you something that's happening. Things are bad at home.
I onda vam počnu govoriti, stvari nisu dobre u kući.
And remember I said, what people tell you the first time that's wrong probably isn't the issue.
I najčešće ono što vam prvo kažu ljudi da nije u redu, nije u biti stvar o kojoj se radi.
It's a symptom of the issue.
To je simptom uzroka.
But passive listening says, I hear what you say.
A pasivno slušanje znači ja čujem što govoriš.
I'm not going to give you any answers at all.
Neću vam dati odgovor.
I'm just going to say, I need you to talk more about that.
Pa samo kažete, pa malo pričaj mi malo pobliže o tome.
Tell me more about what isn't good at home.
Pa daj malo približi mi to što se događa u tvome domu.
Now, if I'm not careful, I will make some assumptions about what's not good at home.
Ako nisam oprezan, ja ću staviti nekakve pretpostavke onome što nije dobro u kući, u domu.
And I may assume that if you're married, it's your spouse that gives you trouble at home.
I ja ću pretpostaviti, ako si oženjen, da je to tvoj partner koji uzrokuje to nezadovoljstvo ili nekakvu situaciju.
You haven't told me what's wrong.
Nisi mi rekao točno što se događa, kakva je situacija.
I assume it's your spouse.
A ja pretpostavljam da je to tvoj partner.
Now, if I follow that path,
ako idem tim putem,
I may be going down the wrong way.
Vjerojatno idem krivim putem.
And I say, okay, tell me more about what's wrong at home.
I onda ja ipak pitam, reci mi malo pobliže, što to nije u redu u kući?
And they say, we just got a new kitten.
I mi smo dobili novog mačića, da.
And all the kitten does is tear up things.
I sve što taj mačić čini je da grebe po stvarima.
My grandmother made curtains for our windows.
Moja baka je napravila zavjese za naše prozore.
And now they're just strings.
A ono su ostali samo, da.
That's what's wrong at home.
To je ono što ne štima u kući.
It's not their spouse.
Nije njihov partner,
It's their cat.
nego mačka.
Would you go there initially?
Da bi išli tamo,
No, we probably
Ne.
wouldn't.
ne bi odmah u početku ne bi to pretpostavili.
But passive listening says, if I listen enough,
Ali pasivno slušanje znači ako dovoljno slušam, dovoljno dugo
and I'll let you talk enough,
i pustim vas da govorite,
the light comes on from me and go, oh, okay, we got a cat problem, not a husband problem.
dolazimo do ovakvih rješenja kao što je mi imamo problem sa mačkom, a ne sa mužem ili ženom, supružnikom.
Unless your husband is tearing up the curtain.
Osim ako je vaš supružnik taj koji grebe po...
That's a whole different issue.
To je nešto sasvim drugačije.
Yeah. So these skills, these 6 skills, will help you if you just practice them over and over again. It's amazing how far you will get understanding the person that you're working with.
Ovo je zanimljivo. Dakle, ove vještine koje sam ovdje naveo dovešće vas prilično daleko i iznenađen sam koliko daleko i kako pomaže upravo razvijanje ovih vještina.
Now, there is a connection, always.
Uvijek postoji spajanje, to jest susret.
To how I feel physically,
Povezanost sa onim kako se osjećam fizički,
and how I feel emotionally,
kako se osjećam emocionalno, osjećajno
and how I feel spiritually.
i kako se osjećam duhovno. Dakle, to je sve povezano.
What affects one
Što se događa na jednom,
affects the other two.
se također odražava na drugom.
So when the person you're working with begins to talk about one, this is how I feel physically,
I često puta kad vam osoba kaže ovako se osjećam fizički,
this is how I feel emotionally,
ovo je kako se osjećam osjećajno, to jest emocionalno,
or this is how I feel spiritually.
ili ovo kako se osjećam duhovno.
They all are connected.
To su sve stvari povezane.
You can't have one without having the other two.
Ne možeš imati samo odvojiti jedno od druge dvije.
So how do you feel physically when you're really, really angry?
Kako se fizički osjećate kada se stvarno ljuti?
How do you feel? How does your body feel?
Kako se vaše tijelo reagira? Kako se osjeća?
Tense?
Tense.
Yes.
No.
Sick at your stomach? My stomach
Često
kinda
puta
hurts.
zaboli želudac,
My neck hurts, my shoulders hurt.
moja ramena, moja leđa bole.
When I get angry, I get this physical response to anger.
Kada sam ljut, onda se fizički odgovorim na tu srdžbu.
So how do I feel emotionally when I get angry?
Kako se osjećam osjećajno, emocionalno kada sam ljut?
What happens when I get angry emotionally?
Što se događa kada se naljutimo sa našim osjećajima?
Let me use a Texas illustration. Maybe you know it when I share it with you.
Evo, sad ću usporediti jedan tekst kao ilustraciju, kao usporedbu.
Our farmers for many, many years did not have tractors.
Naši farmeri, seljaci dugo nisu posjedovali traktore.
They had a big buggy or a big whatever you call it.
Imali su
Cart, a big cart.
Imali su velike kola
And they used a horse to drag the cart.
i upotrebljavali bi konje da vuku ta kola.
And they'd fill the cart with corn or with wheat or with hay or whatever the product was.
I onda bi napunili ta kola da li sa kukuruzom ili sa slamom.
And they'd hook the horse up and he would take it to the barn or take it to the market.
I onda bi pokrenuli konja koji bi ih onda odveo do štale ili odveo na tržnicu.
Now, horses are very, very smart animals.
Konji su vrlo inteligentna bića.
And they really look around and see their world.
I oni
all around them.
vole promatrati stvari oko njih.
And nothing is worse than having a cart full of product, of wheat or corn or hay or whatever, a horse is drawing it and the horse gets distracted because something happens over here.
I nema ništa lošijega od onoga nego kad napunite svoja kola sa nekim sa kukuruzom ili sa slamom i konj svoju pozornost obrati na nešto drugo.
Next thing you know, the cart is going over that way because that's where the horse is going.
I konja privuče ta neka situacija ili nešto ga privuče i on skrene sa puta.
So farmers had a solution.
I zbog toga su seljaci našli jedno rješenje.
They said if we put things on the side of the eyes of the horse,
Ukoliko im stavimo, dakle, pored očiju stvari, kako se zove?
where all he can see is straight ahead,
I ono što, i ako oni samo mogu gledati unaprijed,
we can get to market.
možemo ih dovesti na tržnicu.
Those things they put on the side of their head
Te stvari koje ih usmjeravaju prema naprijed
are called blinders.
se zovu, štitnici, da, postoji riječ u hrvatskom, jer to i kod nas se upotrebljavalo. Ne?
The horse can only see one thing.
Konj vidi samo jednu stvar ispred sebe.
Anger is an emotion that puts blinders on us.
Srdžba je osjećaj koja upravo to čini. Ona nas usmjerava samo na jednu točku.
We get tunnel vision. We only see one thing.
Vidimo samo jednu stvar, kao u tunelu.
We don't get to see other options.
Ne vidimo druge opcije. Samo se usmjeravamo na...
So we have many emotions that are that way, that are very tunnel visioned.
Postoje mnoge emocije, osjećaji koji nas čine da se usmjeravamo samo na jednu stvar.
So when someone says, I feel angry,
Kada vam netko kaže, ja sam srdit,
what I want to do as a counselor is take the blinders off
ono što ja želim kao savjetnik jest da maknem kao kod konja te usmjeravatelje.
say, what else are you feeling? What else is out there? It's not just straight ahead.
Želim ga usmjeriti što još vidiš, što još osjećaš.
Now, what I feel physically and what I feel emotionally affects how I feel spiritually.
Ono što osjećam fizički, što osjećam emocionalno, utječe na ono kako ću se osjećati duhovno.
It's hard for us to love God
Teško nam je voljeti Boga
if I'm angry at someone physically, like I feel it,
ako sam ljut na nekoga onako fizički kao da osjećam
and emotionally I'm overwhelmed with my anger.
i kada sam preuzet jednostavno tom srdžbom.
It's hard for me to say God is love.
I teško mi je tada kazati Bog je ljubav.
So I get spiritually ill.
Tako da postajemo duhovno bolesni.
So here's my job as a counselor.
Ovo je moj posao kao dobrog savjetnika.
I need to listen to the person I'm talking to
Trebam slušati osobu s kojom razgovaram
and discover which one of those areas they're feeling the strongest in.
i moram razabrati u kojem od ovih područja koji je osjećaj najjači.
And as I work with them, I can't ignore the other two.
I dok radim sa tim osjećajem, ne mogu ignorirati ili zabaciti ova ostala dva.
And what we call that
I to nazivamo
is a holistic approach to counseling.
je holistički, cjelovit pristup tomu.
We're concerned about the whole
Problem.
person.
Mi razmatramo cjelovitu osobu.
Okay? So, secondary to that is this.
Druga stvar u tome jest ovo.
What are thoughts? Can you define thoughts without telling me what one is? What is a thought?
Što je misao?
It's a word you use all the time.
To je riječ koju cijelo vrijeme upotrebljavate.
You experience it all the time.
Cijelo vrijeme doživljavate misli. I think it's not broken.
I hope.
Hope. No.
What are you thinking about that falling?
Što osjećate što ste osjetili i razmišljali pri ovom padu?
You're thinking right now.
Evo, sad trenutno osjećate. Mislite.
We didn't plan that.
Nismo ovo planirali.
But we take advantage of things that happen spontaneously.
Ali ćemo uzeti prednosti od ovih stvari koje nam se događaju spontano.
So what's a thought?
Znači, što je misao?
What is thinking?
Što je mišljenje?
What is thinking?
Ono što prolazi našim umom cijelo vrijeme.
What's going through our head.
What's going through our heads, yes. And we put words to it.
I onda tu opišemo ih riječima.
We talk about it being cognition.
Možemo to reći da je to kognitivno. Da.
There's no feeling to thought.
Nema osjećaja u razmišljanju.
It is, the sky is blue.
Dakle, na primjer, nebo je plavo.
The water is cold.
Voda je hladna.
That is a good book to read.
Ovo je dobra knjiga za pročitati.
Those are thoughts.
To su misli.
But with thoughts come feelings.
Ali sa mislima dolaze i osjećaji. Dakle, osjećaji slijede misli.
My neighbor is very noisy next door.
Moj susjed pored mene je jako bučan.
That's a thought.
To je misao.
I want to strangle my neighbor.
Ja bi ga najradije zadavio.
Because they're so noisy.
Jer je toliko bučan.
That's a feeling.
To je osjećaj.
I walk next door.
I dolazim k tom susjedu, kucam.
Knock on the door. My neighbor comes.
Moj susjed dolazi i ja onda izražavam taj osjećaj.
I strangle them.
Ja ga zadavim.
That's an action.
To je akcija. To je djelo.
So what I feel, what I think,
ono što razmišljam,
affects the way I feel,
utječe na to kako se osjećam,
affects the way I act,
i utječe na to kako djelujem.
The way I act affects the way I think,
I moje djelovanje utječe na moje misli,
affects the way I feel,
kako se osjećam.
the way I feel affects the way I think,
moje osjećaj na način kako razmišljam.
it affects the way I act.
I opet djeluje na način mog djelovanja.
The person that you're working with may express their discomfort in any one of these three areas.
Osoba s kojom radite može izražavati na jednom od ovih područja svoje nezadovoljstvo.
You can assume when they tell you one that the other two are going on.
Vi možete pretpostaviti ako vam govori o jednoj stvari da se u stvari događaju i ove dvije stvari u pozadini.
We don't think in a vacuum.
Ne postoji vakuum.
We don't feel in a vacuum.
Ne osjećamo u nekakvom vakuumu, izolirano.
We don't act in a vacuum.
Ne djelujemo u nekakvom vakuumu.
They're all connected.
Neovisno. Dakle, to je sve povezano.
So when I'm talking to someone, I could watch.
Kada s nekim razgovaram, mogu promatrati
what they're doing,
što
they're
čine,
acting.
što njihova djela.
I can listen to what they're thinking.
Mogu slušati o čemu razmišljaju.
I can see how they're feeling with their face.
Mogu vidjeti po njihovom izrazu što osjećaju.
And all of that's going to be congruent. It's going to work together, be symbiotic and work
I sve
together.
te stvari su povezane.
I have to find the easiest way to intervene in that to help them change.
Moram naći najbolji način, to jest najjednostavniji način kako da interveniram u ovu situaciju kako bi došlo do promjene.
Of the three things, which one is the easiest to change?
Što mislite, koja je najlakša stvar za promijeniti u ovim stvarima?
Acting, thinking, or feeling?
I think acting.
Acting.
Yes,
acting is the
znači,
easiest.
Djelovanje je najjednostavnija stvar za promijeniti.
If I start acting a certain way,
ako počinjem djelovati na određeni način,
then I can begin to feel that way.
Onda se počinjem i osjećati na taj način.
If I'm acting and feeling that way,
ako
I find my thoughts go that way.
Ako dakle, to postoji ta interakcija između djela i osjećaja, onda ću vidjeti da su i moja razmišljanja u tom smjeru.
Feelings and thoughts are more difficult to change.
Osjećaji i razmišljanja su teži za promijeniti.
So some of the homework you may give the people that you're working with
I jedna od domaćih zadaća koje možete dati svojim ljudima, klijentima s kojima radite
is between today when we finish talking and next time we meet.
Je između ta dva termina, od danas i sljedeći put kada se susretnemo.
Here's what I want you to do.
Ovo je ono što želim da učinite.
It's all I want you to do.
I ono što želim da učinite je da nešto učinite, dakle djela.
And then eventually what we'll say, here's what I want you to do, and I want you to write down how you feel when you're doing it.
I ono što ćemo, dakle, na posljedku učiniti jest, nakon što učinite neko djelo, napišite ili zapišite kako ste se osjećali nakon toga.
And then I want you to do this and write down how you feel, and then what are you thinking?
I onda ja želim da nakon toga što to zapišete, nakon što ste to napravili, recite kako se osjećate, što razmišljate.
And when we can get all three of those working the same way,
I kad imamo sve te tri stvari zajedno u jednom istom smjeru,
then we have progress.
onda imamo neki napredak.
It's not easy,
Nije jednostavno.
but it's a place to start, okay?
Ali ovo je mjesto da kojim počinjemo.
Now we talk about feelings a lot in psychology.
Puno u psihologiji govorimo o osjećajima.
It's how we operate. We operate in the feelings arena.
To je kako djelujemo. Dakle, mi djelujemo u području osjećaja.
Now, in making that list of 275 feeling words,
I kada smo napravili tu listu od 270 riječi za osjećaje,
what we know is there are 8 or 9 primary emotions.
ipak u tome svemu možemo razlučiti 8 do 9 primarnih osjećaja.
Just like there are 7 or 8 primary colors.
Kao što postoji 7 ili 8 boja koje su primarne, koje su osnovne.
What are the primary colors?
Koje su osnovne boje?
Take you back to kindergarten.
Dugine boje.
Crveno, plavo,
Crveno, plavo i žuto.
Yeah, red, yellow, blue, and red, and green.
Tri samo tri.
Aha,
Tri.
only three.
Yeah.
Only three. Yes.
Six.
Aha.
Red, blue, and yellow?
Red, blue, and yellow.
I'm going to give you 8.
A ja ću vam dati 8.
Okay? Red,
Crvena,
orange,
narančasta,
yellow,
žuta,
green,
zelena,
indigo,
indigo
and blue.
i plava.
What did I miss?
Red, orange, yellow.
Violet is the last one.
Ljubičasta.
Doesn't matter.
Nema veze.
You know your colors.
Znate
It's
boje.
not a test about colors.
Nije to sada test o boja.
Now, when I go to the paint store
Kada odem u dućan sa bojama,
and I'm going to, well, let's make it a little more personal.
ajmo to malo osobnije.
My sweet wife
Moja ljubljena žena
says, "What color is this?"
kaže, koja je ovo boja?
And I say, "Oh, it's green."
Ja kažem, to je zeleno.
And she says, "No.
Kaže, ne.
It's sea mist."
To je, dakle...
That's exactly what I said. It's you know, it's prairie flower. It's
Da, postoje nekakva takva cvijeće ili tako neka nijansa.
who's right?
I ko je sada u pravu?
Absolutely, she's right. Every time she's right.
Ona je uvijek u pravu.
And I admit that. Then we talk about, well, maybe I could be right.
Onda razgovaramo o tome ko može biti u pravu. Jel?
And that's because for every primary color, there are variations and combinations of those primary colors that make all these wonderful.
Jer za svaku osnovnu boju postoje i te nijanse, dijelovi te boje koje čine cijelu paletu.
When you go to the paint store now,
Kada odlazite u dućan sa bojama ili na odjel sa bojama,
and all I know is at home in the U.S., when you go to the paint store, every can of paint on the wall is white.
I kada odete, na primjer, u Americi, svaka je, znači, ta kanta za boju bijela.
And I say, I want a variation of red and yellow something.
I ja sad kažem da želim jednu mješavinu između crvenoga i žutoga.
So they take the white paint and they squirt a little bit of red in it.
Oni uzmu bijelu boju, stave unutra malo crvene,
And a little bit of yellow,
malo žute
and a little bit of green maybe.
i možda malo
And
zelene.
then they mix it
I onda
up.
to promiješaju. To su ima i kod nas.
And it's a color that didn't exist before.
I to je boja koja nije prije postojala. Dakle, miješaju te boje.
But it was made with the primary colors.
Ali je ta boja napravljena iz tih osnovnih boja.
You might ask, what does this have to do with what we're talking about?
Pa kako je to sad, možete se pitati, kako je to sad veze ima sa ovim o čemu razgovaramo?
Because we have 5 or 6 primary emotions.
Zato što imamo 5 ili 6 osnovnih osjećaja ili emocija.
And all of the other emotions are variations of those 5 or 6 emotions.
Da, i svi ostali osjećaji su varijacija, dio kompozicija tih osjećaja.
And it takes a lot of skill and a lot of self-awareness
I trebamo puno vještine i samopouzdanja
for us to be able to kind of describe those really subtle variations.
kako bi mogli razlučiti između tih različitih varijacija.
But the more I'm in tune with those variations with me, the more spiritually and emotionally healthy I am.
Ali što više se ja prema tim osjećajima usmjerim, to postajem zdraviji.
Now let's do this slide, then we'll take a break.
Ajmo sada još jedan dio, pa ćemo onda napraviti pauzu.
Where do feelings come from?
Odakle dolaze osjećaje?
Where do we get them? The feeling store?
Otkud ih dobivamo? Iz dućana? S
You
trgovine?
get them from IKEA.
Ili iz Ikee?
That's where you get feelings, is IKEA.
Evo, u Ikei imaju osjećaje.
If you don't have feelings when you shop at IKEA, something's wrong with you.
Ako nemate osjećaje dok kupujete u Ikei, nešto ne štima.
I want to go in and come out.
Želim ući i izaći.
IKEA says no.
Ikea kaže ne.
You're going to go.
Ićeš gore, dolje, lijevo, desno.
We're going to give you something to eat in the middle.
Ćemo ti u sredini nešto za pojest.
And then you're going to come out.
I onda ćeš izaći van.
And then you got to go home and put it together.
I onda moraš još i doći doma i to sve složiti.
And you got to feel good about it.
I možda ćete se dobro osjećati glede toga.
No, feelings are made at IKEA. But they don't come from IKEA.
Dakle, oni se, znači, stvaraju se u Ikei osjećaj, ali oni ne dolaze od Ikee.
Where do they come from?
Odakle dolaze?
They come from situations.
Dolaze iz situacije.
Something that I'm in. You're having feelings right now in this room.
Nečega u čemu se nalazim. Trenutno imate određeni osjećaj.
It's based on a lot of things.
On se temelji na različitim stvarima.
Some of you brought feelings with you into the room today.
Neki od vas ste donijeli svoje osjećaje ovamo u ovu prostoriju.
And you're still struggling or enjoying those feelings.
I još uvijek se borite ili uživate u tim osjećajima.
So situations that we're in create feelings.
Dakle, situacije u kojima se nalazimo, one prouzrokuju osjećaje.
Memories
Neka
create feelings.
sjećanja uzrokuju osjećaje.
Now, we don't have time we don't have time today.
Nemamo sada vremena,
But I could tell you to close your eyes
ali rekao bi da zatvorite oči
and think about your favorite holiday when you were a child.
i razmišljajte o najdražem izletu ili o ferijama koje ste imali kao dijete.
And that memory will bring up good feelings.
I ta uspomene će donijeti dobre osjećaje.
I can also say, think of the worst day you had at school.
I mogu vam također prizvati u sjećanje da se sjetite najlošijeg dana kojeg ste imali u školu, tijekom
And
škole.
even though you're sitting in this room,
I premda sada sjedite u ovoj
you're present with all of us,
i oko vas su drugi ljudi,
your feelings can change like this
i vaši se osjećaji trenutno mogu promijeniti
to a very negative feeling,
prema negativnim osjećajima.
just because of the memory.
Samo zbog uspomena ili sjećanja.
Now, memories are wonderful things. It's the greatest gift God has given us.
Uspomeni su odlična stvar. To je jedna od najvećih darova koju nam je Bog darovao.
Because we hang on to so many things in our memory bank. We don't even understand where these things live in our head.
Postoje mnoge ta sjećanja i uspomene koje su u našem životu i na koje se rado prisjećamo.
But a lot of feelings come with memories.
Ali mnogo osjećaja dolazi kroz uspomene.
You're not going to change the memory.
Ne možete uspomene promijeniti.
I can't go back and say, have a good day in third grade.
Ne mogu se vratiti u vaš 3. razred i reći imajte dobar dan, promijenite to u dobro.
You know, somebody knocked you down on the playground and skinned your knee.
Potukli ste se s nekim na igralištu i on vas je ozlijedio.
We can't change that bad feeling,
Ne možemo promijeniti taj loš osjećaj,
but I can know where it came from.
ali znamo dakle je došao.
And it's not about what's happening now.
I ne radi se onome što se dogodilo sada.
So sometimes our feelings get caught up in old things,
I naše se osjećaji često puta nađu u starim stvarima.
and we have this great big suitcase.
Kad imamo jedan veliki kovčeg
We put all these things in this suitcase,
u kojega sve te stvari stavljamo.
and then we drag it along behind us
I
all day long.
onda ga vozimo sa sobom cijelog dana.
I got all this baggage I'm carrying.
Sve tu prtljagu koju imam.
Part of what you and I can do with helping people with memories
Dio onoga što mogu učiniti da pomognem ljudima sa uspomenama,
is unpack the suitcase and leave it behind.
da otvore te svoje kofere i prtljagu i da je ostave.
You know, one of the things that activates a memory more than anything else
Jedna od stvari koja najbrže aktivira uspomene
is smell.
jest miris.
The sense of smell
Yes.
will activate many memories.
Osjet mirisa će aktivirati mnoge stvari.
Now, we have a holiday in the US. It happens every November.
Imamo znači naše ferije, naše ljetovanje u Sjedinjenim državama.
And the holiday is called Thanksgiving.
To je dakle u studenome, to je dan zahvalnosti.
And many of us have forgotten why we have Thanksgiving.
I mnogi su zaboravili zbog čega slavimo dan zahvalnosti.
We just enjoy not going to work and being with family.
I najčešće nam je drago da ne moramo raditi, da smo sa obitelji.
Now, at Thanksgiving we have traditional foods that we eat.
Postoji tradicionalna hrana koja se onda konzumira za dan zahvalnosti.
And strangely enough, we don't eat that any other time of the year.
I zanimljivo, mi tu hranu ne konzumiramo u drugim dijelovima godine.
One of those things is roasted turkey.
Jedna od tih stvari je pečena purica.
Nothing smells better
Ništa ne miriše bolje
than going to Granny's house,
nego otići kod bake u njezin dom
and she's had the turkey in the oven all morning.
i ona peče tu puricu cijelo vrijeme, cijelo jutro u pečnici.
And you can smell it.
I možete osjetiti taj miris purice.
To this day, if I smell turkey roasting,
I do dana današnjega, kada osjetim miris purice,
I don't think about a dead bird in the oven.
ne razmišljamo o mrtvoj ptici u pečnici.
I think about Granny
Ja razmišljam o svojoj baki.
and the wonderful time we had around the table.
I odlične dobrog vremena koje smo imali zajedno za stolom.
Smell brought that memory back.
Taj miris je vratio uspomenu.
So, when someone talks about memories, you might investigate a little bit what's been going on with the rest of your senses for a little while.
Kad neko govori o uspomenama, onda možemo vidjeti koja je to povezano sa ostalim okusima, osjetima.
Interpretation of reality,
Tumačenje stvarnosti
it brings on feelings.
donosi osjećaje također.
And here's one, projection into the future.
I još je jedna projekcija budućnosti.
I'm going to feel this tomorrow.
Ja ću se sutra osjećati ovako.
Now, what's wrong with that statement?
Što je loše u ovome rečeno? Što je rečeno?
Do you really know what's going to happen tomorrow?
Vi zaista znate što će se sutra dogoditi?
We know what you have planned for tomorrow.
Znamo da postoje planovi za sutrašnjicu.
And maybe if what we have planned is going to have feelings with it, we can project that.
I možda možemo projecirati nekakve osjećaje za budućnosti.
But I don't need to borrow feelings from tomorrow that haven't happened yet for me to feel today.
Ali ja ne mogu posuditi te osjećaje koje će se dogoditi u sutrašnjici kako da se ja osjećam danas.
I don't need to feel angry today for something that's going to happen tomorrow.
Ne moram se danas ljutiti na stvari koje će se dogoditi sutra tek.
Maybe.
Možda.
Maybe it'll happen tomorrow, maybe not.
Možda će se dogoditi, možda i neće.
Wait for tomorrow.
Čekajte sutra.
But projecting into the future is a place of feeling, and there are many other places.
Ali ta projekcija u budućnosti je također jedan od načina kako se ljudi mogu utjecati na osjećaje.
Let's take a short break.
Ajmo sad malo pauzu.
5 minutes?
5 minuta.
That works? Need more time, less time? 5, 4, 3,
Više,
2,
manje.
1, 10, 12?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Aha, imate tako.
We ready?
Jesmo li spremni?
Jesmo.
Excellent.
Odlično.
I want us to talk with the time that we have left
Želim u ovom preostalom vremenu razgovarati
about what I can do as a helper
kako mogu pomoći kao pomoćnik
in times of crisis.
nekome ko je u krizi.
That is the time when I feel the most helpless.
To je vrijeme ili razdoblje kada se osjećam najviše bez snage, bespomoćno, tako je.
It's hard to know what to do when crisis occurs.
Teško je znati što učiniti kada dođe do krize.
Because crisis by definition is very tunnel visioned.
Jer je kriza po samoj svojoj definiciji upravo takva jedna ograničena vizija.
There's usually some event that creates the crisis.
To je dakle neki događaj koji uzrokuje tu krizu.
So let's look at the formal definition.
Ajmo pogledati formalnu definiciju krize.
It's a temporary state of upset and disorganization.
To je privremeno stanje ili trenutno stanje uzrujanosti i neorganiziranosti.
Now there are 2 or 3 really important words in that, and I hope it translates this way. One is the word temporary.
Postoje dvije stvari koje su ovdje treba naglasiti. Jedna stvar je da je to privremena stvar.
One of the things that we need to know as a helper
Ono što trebamo znati kao pomoćnici
is that all crisis is temporary.
Jest ta da sve su krize privremene, trenutne.
Now we may have a new crisis come along,
Moguće je da će se pojaviti nova kriza,
but the one I'm in right now is temporary.
ali ono kroz što sad prolazim je privremeno.
It's a time of upset and disorganization. Everything is disorganized.
To je situacija uzrujanosti, neorganiziranosti.
And it's characterized by my inability to cope with it.
I karakteristika toga je da je moja nesposobnost u tome da se s tim suoči. Ili nesposobnošću pojedinca da se nosi s određenom situacijom.
What makes it a crisis is the things that I know to do, I have tried and they don't work.
Situacija je takva da stvari koje sam znao kako na njih odgovoriti u krizi, ja sad više ne znam. Dođemo do trenutka da nemamo odgovor.
Something comes up temporarily.
Na primjer, neka se situacija dogodi
It's overwhelming.
i koja nas preuzme.
And I try by using my usual methods of dealing with things
Ja nastojim svojim uobičajenim metodama riješiti tu situaciju.
and it doesn't work.
I ne funkcionira.
That's a crisis.
To je kriza.
So when someone comes to you in crisis,
Dakle, kad neko dođe k vama, a u krizi je,
it can be a real crisis. I've run out of money and I have many more things, bills I have to pay.
može biti prava kriza, znači stvarna kriza. Imam toliko dugova, a nemam novaca.
I'm sick and I don't know what to do.
Bolestan sam, a ne znam što da učinim.
I'm not sleeping well.
Ne mogu spavati.
You just think of what the crisis is.
Razmislite o bilo čemu što donosi krizu.
And I've tried everything I know to do and nothing
I
works.
sve sam nastojao da riješim tu krizu, ali ništa ne funkcionira.
That's when they come looking for us.
To je trenutak kada počinju tražiti savjetnika.
Yeah. The important thing to remember as I'm working with someone in crisis is the word temporary.
Vrlo važna stvar koju moramo znati kada radimo s ljudima u krizi jest ta riječ privremeno.
The crisis state
Krizno stanje je vremenski ograničeno.
Can you bring it back?
sure I can. To that? Yes.
Dakle, evo imamo ovdje
See
definiciju.
how good I am? We solved the crisis.
Evo, riješili smo krizu.
It was temporary.
Bila je privremena.
We worked it, it's fine, we did it.
Evo, malo smo radili na njoj i idemo dalje.
Now, crisis is time limited.
Krizno stanje je vremenski ograničeno.
Usually a crisis will be over in 4 to 6 weeks.
Obično se kriza rješava u jednom razdoblju od 4 do 6 tjedana.
If left undone to its own devices, it will solve itself in 4 to 6 weeks.
Najčešće, ako se ne dira puno, ako se ne radi na njoj, riješit će se za 4 do 6 tjedana.
Now, why is that a good thing?
Zašto je to dobra stvar?
It's good because it won't last very long.
Dobra stvar je u tome da neće trajati predugo.
It's overwhelming.
Neki puta nas preuzme i optereti.
And maybe all I can say to the person is, let's just slow down and let's just wait and see what happens.
I najčešće što mogu reći osobi jest, ajde sad malo strpi se, pričekaj dok se ne riješi.
A crisis is usually set off by some precipitating event.
Obično je kriza izazvana nekim događajem.
Something happens,
nešto se dogodilo
and it creates the crisis.
I uzrokovalo je krizu.
Also,
također,
it can be expected to follow sequential events.
Očekuje se da će uslijediti nekakvi događaji.
Most crises follow the same patterns of development.
Najčešće se krize slijede isti obrazac ponašanja i razvoja.
Crisis has the potential.
Kriza ima potencijal.
Has the potential for me to come out the other side stronger than when I went in.
Za rješavanje prema višim ili nižim razinama funkcioniranja.
Okay?
Da postaje jača ili slabija.
So the crisis occurs.
Znači, pojavi se kriza.
I feel overwhelmed.
Ja se osjećam preopterećen.
I may even panic.
Čak mogu doći u paniku.
My job as a helper is to say, just settle down for just a minute.
Moj posao, naš posao kao savjetnike je da kažemo, ajde smirimo se malo, pričekajmo.
Let's look and see what happened.
Ajmo vidjeti što će se dogoditi.
And maybe something good will come from this.
I možda će nešto dobro izaći iz toga. Mislim da rade kuću i ovo.
Now the way we solve crisis,
možemo riješiti križu, konačno rješenje krize ovisi o
depends on the severity of the crisis.
O zbiljnosti krize.
Now, one crisis may be I have a flat tire.
Jedna od kriza može biti da mi je pukla guma.
And I have somewhere to be in 20 minutes.
A moram biti negdje za 20 minuta.
How do you solve that crisis?
Kako ćete riješiti tu krizu?
You put air in the tire.
Stavit ćete zrak u gume. Probat ćete. Znači nije se probušila, nego se recimo izašao iz zraka.
Take the tram.
Ili uzmeš tramvaj.
Call Uber.
Ili zvati Uber.
Call a friend.
Nazvat prijatelja.
The tire is not the crisis.
Znači ta guma nije kriza.
How I respond to the crisis.
Nego kako mi reagiramo na tu krizu.
Becomes the crisis.
To postaje kriza.
You go to the doctor.
Odete liječniku.
The doctor says, I'm sorry to tell you.
I doktor vam kaže, žao mi je.
You have a very, very severe illness.
Imate jednu veliku bolest, jednu ozbiljnu bolest.
That is more of a crisis than a flat tire.
To je veća kriza od gume koja nema zraka.
So the severity of the crisis depends on the severity of the event that causes the crisis.
Ozbiljnost krize ovisi o ozbiljnosti događaja koji je uzrokovao tu krizu.
The crisis also depends on my personal resources.
Kriza često puta ovisi o vlastitim resursima ili izvorima.
What do I have at my disposal to solve the crisis?
Što ja imam na raspolaganju da bi riješio određenu krizu?
Do I have another tire in my trunk?
Imam li drugu gumu u svom prtljažniku?
I change the tire and I move on.
Promijenit ću gumu i idemo dalje.
I have a good doctor.
Imam dobrog liječnika.
I have good health care.
I imam dobro osiguranje.
They're going to take really good care of me.
Oni će se dobro pobrinuti za mene.
That'll make a big difference in how I respond to the crisis.
To će napraviti veliku razliku prema tome kako ću odgovoriti na određenu krizu.
And the last one resolution is what kind of social
I treća
support do I
točka je
have?
kako imam društveno potporu, taj pojedinac, kako imam društvenu potporu ili društveni resursi ovdje.
Do I have friends and family that come to my rescue?
I imam li prijatelje i imam li obitelj koja će mi doći i pomoći da mi pomognu?
Can I count on them to be there?
Mogu li računati da će biti ovdje?
That will determine how the crisis comes out.
To će biti presudno i to će odlučiti kako će kriza se završiti.
Now, every crisis
Svaka kriza
has an identifiable beginning.
ima početak koji se može identificirati.
You can talk to anyone about a crisis and there is a point at which it all started.
I možete razgovarati sa ljudima o njihovoj krizi i postoji točka, to jest središnja točka, izvorišna točka kada je sve započelo.
Pregnancy, birth of a child.
Dakle, trudnoća i rođenje djeteta.
Maybe unmarried motherhood.
Vanbračno majčinstvo.
Change from home to school.
Dakle, prijelaz iz kuće u školu.
Oh, little kids have a big crisis when they leave home and go to kindergarten or preschool.
Mala djeca imaju veliku krizu kada iz vrtića idu u školu.
Which is the biggest crisis, the child or the mother?
Koja je veća kriza, mama ili dijete?
Hard to know sometimes, yeah.
Teško je razlučiti.
That's a crisis.
To je kriza.
Engagement or marriage.
Zaruke i brak.
Surgery or illness.
Operacija i bolest.
Bereavement, loss.
Težak gubitak.
Relocation, I move somewhere else.
Selidba.
That's a crisis.
Kada se selimo nekamo drugamo. Sve to uzrokuje kriza.
Retirement.
Odlazak u mirovinu.
I can personally tell you retirement is a crisis.
Ja vam osobno mogu reći mirovina, odlazak u mirovinu jest kriza.
I decided several years ago I was going to retire from my practice.
Prije nekoliko godina odlučio sam otići u mirovinu iz svoje prakse.
I was going to stay home and read books and fish.
Razmišljao sam o tome, bit ću doma, čitat ću knjige, ići ću ribariti, pecati.
Sleep as long as I wanted to.
Spavat ću kako god hoću.
Eat anything I wanted to eat.
Jesti što god hoću.
Life was going to be wonderful.
I život će biti prekrasan.
You know how long I retired?
Znate koliko dugo sam bio tako u mirovini?
2 months.
2 mjeseca.
I read all my books.
Pročitao sam sve knjige.
I slept as long as I could sleep.
Spavao sam koliko sam god htio.
I couldn't go fishing.
Nisam baš mogao ići pecati.
I got really bored being at home.
Bilo mi je dosadno doma.
I said, I've got to go back to work.
Pa onda sam rekao, pa bolje da ja krenem opet raditi.
So my solution for my retirement crisis
Moja rješenje za moju krizu umirovljenja
was to unretire.
jest da ne idem u mirovinu.
So instead of saying retirement,
I umjesto da sam rekao mirovina,
I said repurposed.
Ja sam rekao, ja sam obnovio svoju svrhu.
I just repurposed me.
Da, obnova svrhe, da.
It's also a violation of values is a crisis.
Krizu uzrokuje i kršenje određenih vrijednosti.
Something happens that goes against my value system.
Nešto se dogodi što je u suprotnosti sa mojim pravilima vrijednosti.
Life trauma.
Životna trauma. Prirodna katastrofa.
Natural disaster. Rapid social or technological changes.
Brze društvene i tehnološke promjene.
Now then, my daughter, my oldest daughter,
Ma najstarija kćer
is just like her father.
je nekako kao i njezin otac.
I would go to school
Ja sam išao u kuću,
forever
u školu, ja bi išao u školu zauvijek,
if I could.
da sam mogao.
I would be a forever student.
Bio bi ono što kažemo vječni student.
My wife says, Ne.
Moja žena rekla nema šanse.
My daughter,
Moja kćer
this summer,
je ovo ljeto
got 2 master's degrees
dobila 2 magisterija
and 1 doctorate degree.
i 1 doktorat.
And she says she's not through yet.
I ona kaže još nije završila.
Her husband said,
A njezin muž kaže dosta je,
no more.
nema više.
She's a school teacher. She wants to be an administrator in school.
A ona želi biti učiteljica, znači administrator.
Now, while she's doing her research and working on her dissertation and her thesis,
I dok je prolazila kroz svoja istraživanja i prolazila kroz svoju dizertaciju i tezu,
I had to listen to her complain about how slow the search engines were that she was using on internet.
i onda sam morao slušati kako se žalila da su jako slabe ove istraživačke kao Google i tako dalje.
I can't find things. It takes 10 minutes to find something.
Ja ne mogu naći neke stvari, 10 minuta mi treba da nađem
It's
određene.
just so slow.
Tako su spore.
Now, I took it for a little while,
Ja sam to slušao neko vrijeme.
and finally I had to respond to her.
I na koncu sam joj odgovorio.
Said, when I was getting my PhD,
Ja kad sam svoj doktorat radio,
I had a typewriter.
imao sam pisaću mašinu.
I had to go to the library, to the building, the library.
Morao sam ići u zgradu, u biblioteku.
I had to go to the wall that had all the cards in it.
I morao sam ići tamo i tražiti sve te kartice, tražiti.
I had to look up the book I was looking for.
Da bi našao knjigu koja bi odgovara.
Then I had to go to a different room in the library.
Onda sam trebao ići u sasvim drugu prostoriju u toj knjižnici.
And I would find out somebody else had the book I wanted.
I onda sam našao da je neko drugi imao
I had
već
to
to
go back to
posuditi.
the card catalog.
Onda sam opet trebao ići u taj katalog sa karticama.
Find another book.
Naći novu knjigu.
Go find that book.
Naći tu knjigu.
Take it to the librarian.
Odnijeti knjižničaru.
And they would say, you cannot check that book out.
I oni kažu, ovu knjigu ne možete posuditi.
You have to read it here.
Morate tu čitati u knjižnici.
So I would read and I would write.
I onda bi ja čitao i pisao.
No copy machines.
Nije bilo kopirke.
Read and write.
Čitaj i prepisuj.
Make note cards.
Napravi zabilješke.
Go home.
Idi kući.
Type it out.
Piši na mašinu.
It took me forever.
Ja sam to mene trajalo dugo.
If the library I was at didn't have what I was looking for,
I ako moja knjižnica nije imala ono što sam tražio,
the librarian would call a friend of hers in Massachusetts or in Spokane, Washington.
Moja knjižničarka bi nazvala kolegu u sasvim drugoj državi, u Sjedinjenim državama.
Do you have the book?
Imaš, posjeduješ li tu knjigu?
Well, yes, I have the book.
Imam.
Can you lend it to us?
Možete li nam posuditi?
And I had to fill out a form
I trebao sam ispuniti taj formular,
to send to that library,
poslati toj
to send
knjižnici,
that book to my
kako bi
library.
oni to poslali moje knjižnici,
And I could only use it for one day.
koju sam trebao možda samo za jedan dan,
And I had to send it back to the library.
i opet poslati nazad tamo u drugu državu i pisati na pisaćoj mašini.
It took forever.
To je trajalo dugo, vječno.
And then I finished all my research and all my work.
I kad sam završio sva svoja istraživanja i sav svoj rad,
And my committee said, that was working with me on my dissertation,
i znači oni koji su radili sa mnom na mojoj disertaciji,
we need 10 copies of your dissertation.
rekli su trebamo 10 kopija vaše disertacije.
They must be identical,
Moraju biti identični,
no copying,
ne smiješ kopirati,
no carbon paper.
nije bilo da.
Everyone had to be original.
Svaki je trebao biti originalan tekst. Trebao sam pisati.
Take forever to get it all done.
Trebao sam to je trajalo jako dugo.
Take it to your committee,
Donijeti tamo u taj odbor.
and they would say, you know, on page 40,
Znaš, na 40. stranici
you didn't note the footnote well enough.
nisi stavio fusnotu ispravno.
Go back and change it.
Vrati se i promijeni.
You couldn't erase.
Nisi mogao samo izbrisati,
You couldn't put it at the bottom.
nisi mogao samo staviti ispod,
You took all 10 copies,
morao si svih 10 kopija baciti
start over.
i početi iznova.
They would read again, make a correction.
I opet isto pročitali bi i opet bi se bacilo.
I told my daughter I have no sympathy for a 10-minute lag in your search engine.
Ja sam rekao, ja nemam uopće suosjećajnosti za tvoje 10-minutno istraživanje.
None whatsoever.
Bez obzira o čemu se radi.
The rapid technological change was a crisis for me.
Ova brzina tehnoloških promjena je bila kriza za mene osobno.
I think how much can I do in today's age?
Ja razmišljam o tome koliko danas mogu učiniti u današnjem vremenu.
Unexpected death of a loved one is a crisis.
Neočekivana smrt voljene osobe je također uzrok krize.
Rape or incest is a crisis.
Silovanje, incest je također jedna
Divorce is a
razvod
crisis.
je kriza.
Anyone that you're working with that's going through divorce is in a crisis state.
Svako s kojim radite, a da se nalazi u procesu razvoda, se nalazi u krizi.
Family violence.
Nasilje u obitelji.
Change in financial state.
Promjena financijskog stanja.
Change in church activity.
Promjena u crkvenim aktivnostima.
Why is that a crisis?
Zašto je to kriza?
What do you think?
Što mislite? Kako?
We're going to change the schedule next week at
Evo,
church.
sljedeći tjedan ćemo promijeniti raspored u crkvi.
We're going to change how we do things at church.
Promijenit ćemo raspored stvari kako ih činimo u crkvi.
Just try it.
Samo probaj.
I promise you.
Ja vam obećavam.
You will have precipitated a crisis.
Iskusit ćete što znači kriza.
Why is that one a crisis?
Zašto je to jedna kriza? Crkvene aktivnosti.
Because we have to accommodate our schedules and everything that we do.
That's everything around it, yes.
Moramo prilagoditi svoj raspored prema tome.
But you know, there's also something very safe.
Ali postoji nešto što je vrlo sigurno
in the predictable.
U onome što se može predvidjeti, u predvidljivosti.
My world may not be predictable at all anywhere.
Moj svijet možda neće biti nigdje predvidljiv.
But when I come to church,
ali kad dođem u crkvu,
I want to know that's predictable.
Ja želim znati da je tu postoji određena
I can
predvidljivost.
breathe and I can relax.
Gdje se mogu udahnuti, gdje se mogu opustiti.
I know we're going to worship a certain way.
Znam da ćemo slaviti na određeni način.
We're going to read the scripture a certain way.
Čitat ćemo pismo na određeni način.
We're going to have communion a certain way.
Imat ćemo večeru Gospodnju, Euharistiju na određeni način.
In a certain order.
Na određeni raspored.
And it's going to feel good and safe.
I to će nas ispuniti osjećajem, dobrim osjećajem i sigurnim osjećajem.
So if you're a leader in your church, think twice about changing things up. Ukoliko
ste voditelj u crkvi, razmislite ponovno hoćete li mijenjati stvari.
I'm not saying don't change things up.
Ja vam neću kazati da ne mijenjate stvari,
but prepare the congregation if you're going to change things up.
Ali pripremite uvijek zajednicu da će doći do promjena.
After my divorce, I had a good friend that went to the Episcopal church.
Imao sam dobrog prijatelja koji je išao u episkopalnu crkvu.
I had never been to the Episcopal church.
Nikad nisam bio u episkopalnoj crkvi.
It's very different than the church I grew up in.
To je sasvim različito od crkve u kojoj sam ja odrastao.
One way it's different is they have a hymnal.
Imaju pjesmaricu.
And they have a prayer book.
I imaju, to je Book of the Common Prayer. To je anglikanska crkva u Americi, znači tamo se zove drugačije. Molitvenik, da.
And it's on a rack in front of me.
I ispred mene se nalazi taj Book of the Common Prayer.
And there's a kneeling bench that folds down.
I postoje klečaonice ispred mene u toj klupi.
I didn't know how to do any of that stuff.
Nisam znao kako da se sada prilagodim tome.
I was singing out of the prayer book.
Pjevao sam iz tog teksta te molitvenika.
I was praying out of the hymnal.
molio sam iz pjesmarice.
I was kneeling when everyone else was standing.
Ja sam klečao kad su drugi se dizali.
I would stand up and everyone would kneel.
Ja bi se ustao i drugi bi klekli.
When church was over, I went, oh, I'm exhausted. That's hard work.
Kad je crkva bila, dakle, kad je služba bila gotova, ja sam bio iscrpljen.
Hard work going to church.
Pa tu se dosta radi.
The next Sunday,
Sljedeće nedelje
I went back to what I was familiar with.
vratio sam se na službu koja mi je bila poznata.
I felt good.
Osjećao sam se dobro.
So change in worship time can be very crisis creating.
Dakle, promjena u toj službi ili u vremenu slavljenja također može biti određena kriza. Uzrokovati određene krize.
Get my glasses so I can see.
Idem u mojim naočalama.
How we doing here on time? Okay.
Idemo dalje.
Hang with me. We're going to go to a diagram here.
Idemo do jednog dijagrama.
If I can find it.
Ako ga nađem.
You dizzy yet?
Kako se osjećate? Možemo dalje, jel?
Yep.
Imamo snage.
Good.
Dobro.
Not really good. Okay. This is in English. We didn't get a chance to translate it.
Nismo ovo mogli prevesti,
but it's easy to understand.
Ali je jednostavno za razumjeti.
Here are the stages that every crisis goes through.
Ovo su stupnjevi svake krize kroz koju prolazimo.
Regardless of what the crisis is.
Bez obzira o kakvoj se krizi radi.
The variation is going to be the time involved in each stage.
Varijacije su u vremenu koja se između svakog razdoblja događa.
There's going to be the event, the thing that precipitates a crisis.
Postoji dakle jedan događaj koji je početak te krize.
And that's going to result in some kind of outcry on my part.
I taj događaj će rezultirati time da potragom za kada počnemo, to razdoblje se naziva outcry.
Yeah. I'm going to respond.
Vapim. Želim odgovoriti na tu krizu.
And then that response is going to say, maybe it's not so bad. I'm going to go into denial for a little while.
I nakon toga dolazi do nijekanja. Možda to nije tako loša kriza.
I can't live in denial very long.
Ne mogu dugo živjeti u tom nijekanju.
Denial is designed to give me just a resting place for a moment.
A to stanje nijekanja postoji zato da mi da malo vremena da se odmorim, da malo razmislim.
And then I'm going to feel like whatever happened, whatever that crisis was, came into my life and just took over everything. It was very intrusive.
Intrusive. Kako?
Invasive.
It took it over.
Preuzelo me. Dakle, to je stvar koja me toliko preuzela da ne mogu je riješiti. Ja.
It was like this yesterday, but today I'm totally out of control.
Razmišljam o tome, jučer je bilo sve u redu, ali danas je potpuno van kontrola.
And then we're going to go through a period of working through the crisis.
I tada ulazimo u razdoblje kada radimo sa tom krizom.
And then the crisis is over. I've completed my work with the crisis.
I nakon tog vremena mi smo završili sa krizom, mi smo je nadvladali, mi smo je riješili.
Now, my job and your job as a counselor.
Naš je posao nas kao savjetnika.
When someone says to us, I'm in crisis right now.
Kada neko kaže ja sam trenutno u krizi.
Is to determine where in the crisis am I?
Da razlučimo gdje sam ja, u kojem sam razdoblju krize, znači u kojem sam stupnju te krize trenutno.
What started the crisis? What was the event?
Što je bio, koji bi događaj uzrokovao tu krizu?
Am I in that spot where I'm in denial?
Nalazi se li ta osoba u ovom razdoblju, to jest u stupnju nijekanja?
Am I working through it a little bit?
Radili na tome?
Where am I? That helps me know where my job comes in.
Tu je sad gdje moramo razlučiti i mi se aktivirati da vidimo u kojem se razdoblju ili u stanju nalazi ta osoba, krize.
Okay. We're going to skip this one and go to this one.
Idemo sada na ovoj.
Now this is very busy.
Graf, ovo je dosta toga postoji
lot
ovdje.
of stuff on here.
Puno stvari je ovdje napomenuto.
So let's try to walk through it if we can.
Ajmo proći kroz to.
This is the anatomy of a crisis.
Ovo je anatomija krize.
Now, once again, in the blue box, we have some event that starts the crisis.
U plavom ovoj kockici se nalaze stvari koje su neki događaj koji nas je doveo u krizu.
It may be the flat tire, it may be the doctor, it may be our children, it
Može
may be
biti guma, može biti liječnik, može
who
biti
knows,
naša
whatever
djeca.
the event is.
Što god da jest događaj.
Now, the thing to know,
Stvari koje trebamo znati,
if I perceive it to be a crisis,
ako ja smatram to krizom,
it is a crisis.
onda to jest kriza.
All that makes it a crisis is my perception.
Sve što to čini krizom je moja percepcija.
You might be in a crisis with a flat tire.
Možeš biti u krizi sa probušenom gumom.
I may not at all.
Pa neko se uopće ne osjeća u krizi.
I may just fix it and go on.
Pa popravit ću, idem dalje.
I may go get a cup of coffee and forget about it.
Idem popit par kava i u redu.
Whereas your life is turned upside down because you have a flat tire.
Tamo kod nekoga će jednostavno svijet će se okrenuti naopako zbog te gume.
So when someone describes the event, do not judge that event.
Dakle, ako neko opisuje taj događaj, nemoj suditi prema tom događaju.
Don't say, oh, that's not a crisis.
Nemoj reći, to nije kriza.
That little thing?
Ta mala stvar.
No.
Ne.
It is a crisis that they perceive it to be.
Oni to razlučuju kao krizu.
So what happens is, I'm in a state of equilibrium. Everything is balanced in my life, theoretically.
I ajmo reći, ja se nalazim u jednom stanju ravnodušnosti. Kako? Ravnoteže, da.
And the crisis comes along and now everything is out of balance.
Aha, i onda dođe kriza i jednostavno sve to razori. I sve izađe izvan ravnoteže.
Do you have this playground toy where it's a long board and two children sit on each end?
Imate li klackalicu u ovoga na igralištima?
There are many different names for that.
Postoje različita imena. Klackalica, ali?
You know, if I have someone on the other end
Ako imam nekoga ko sjedi na drugom strani,
that weighs about the same as I do,
koja ima težinu koliko i ja,
we can play a game where we try to get it to balance.
možemo se igrati igru gdje ćemo doći u ravnotežu.
If there's disparity in our sizes or our weight,
I ako postoji neravnoteža između naših težina,
then what happens to it?
što će se onda dogoditi?
And if I'm really a mean kid,
I ako sam ja zločesti dečko,
I make it happen.
mogu se ja to napraviti da dođe do
Knock you
disbalansa. Mogu te izbaciti iz klackalice.
Our life is like that when it's balanced.
Tako je naš život, jel? Kao ta klackalica.
Crisis comes along and destroys that balance.
Kriza dođe i ona uništi taj balans, napravi disbalans.
Physics has a law,
Fizika ima zakone
and the law says every time there is disequilibrium,
i ona kaže u tim zakonitostima da svaki puta kad dolazi do neravnoteže,
the system will work to restore equilibrium.
sustav će sam stvarati ponovo tu ravnotežu.
It will work hard to make it balanced again.
Jako će se truditi napraviti ponovo taj balans.
Now, while it's doing that,
I dok je u tom procesu toga stvaranja balansa,
we have all kinds of feelings going on.
postoje razne razine i načini osjećaja.
In the green box,
U tom zelenom kocki ovoj.
the way that I can balance it again is I can get a realistic perception of what the crisis was.
Način na koji to mogu balansirati je da dobijem realističnu sliku onoga što se događa.
And as a helper, what I can do is help someone talk through the crisis to help get it balanced again.
Kao onaj koji želim pomoći, ja moram i nastojem ljude vratiti u taj balans, da ponovo balansiraju tu krizu.
I know it feels like a crisis right now, because it is.
Trenutno se osjećaš kao da si u krizi, zato što to jest kriza.
But let's talk about it for just a moment.
Ajmo sad malo o tome razgovarati.
Are there solutions to your crisis right now?
Postoje li rješenja za ovu krizu kroz koju prolaziš trenutno?
You have another tire to put on?
Imaš li neku drugu gumu koju možeš staviti?
Someone to call to get you?
Nekoga koga možeš pozvati da te odveze?
So once I explore the crisis, I go to the next level, which is, do I have the social support to get through the crisis?
I nakon toga, kada nađem rješenje za krizu, sada tražimo postoji li društvena potpora za rješavanje te krize.
The next level is, what kind of coping skills do I have?
Sljedeća stvar je koje imam vještine
And that's where you and I,
nošenja sa tom krizom.
that's where you and I come in as helpers.
To je trenutak kada mi kao pomoćnici ulazimo u tu krizu.
What can we do to cope with this for a little while?
Što možemo učiniti da bi se ljudi nosili sa tom krizom?
The doctor has given you very bad news.
Liječnik vam je dao loše vijesti.
So what can we do?
Pa što možemo učiniti?
We can wait and see.
Možemo pričekati i vidjeti.
We can know what happened to other people who had this illness.
Možemo vidjeti što se dogodilo drugim ljudima koji su imali tu bolest.
Are there medicines to help you?
Postoje li lijekovi koji će vam pomoći?
Do most people get better from this?
Da li ljudi ozdrave od toga ili postane im bolje od tih
All
lijekova?
of those are coping skills.
Sve su to načini kako se nosimo, vještine kojim se nosimo taj teret.
And then the problem is resolved. I get a new tire.
I onda se problem rješava. Dobivam novu gumu.
The doctor says, don't worry.
Liječnik kaže, nemoj se brinuti.
We have things to help your illness.
I imamo lijekove koji će pomoći tvoje bolesti.
It's not as bad as I thought.
Nije baš tako loše kao što sam mislio.
And then when that happens, everything goes back to balance again.
I kad se to dogodi, sve se ponovo balansira.
And the crisis is over.
I kriza je završila.
That's the green side.
To je ova zelena kocka.
The red side,
Crvena kocka,
is I get the same news.
jest kada dobijem iste vijesti,
The event that starts the crisis just totally disorients me.
znači događaj koji je uzrokovao krizu me potpuno dezorientirao.
I don't think straight anymore.
Ne razmišljam više onako pravilno.
I don't know what I'm feeling anymore.
Ne znam više što osjećam.
I overreact.
Reagiram i prenaglašeno reagiram.
I don't have the support that I need.
Nemam potporu koja mi je potrebna.
Where do I go to get the help I need?
Kuda da idem da dobijem pomoć?
When those things begin to happen, I realize all the coping skills I have begin to go away.
Kada vidim da se te stvari događaju, vidim da te sve stvari s kojim bi se, vještine s kojima sam mogao nositi, nestaju, jednostavno ne pomažu.
The crisis goes unresolved.
Kriza se ne rješava.
Now, here's the important thing.
Ovo je važna sad stvar.
If it goes unresolved,
Ukoliko se kriza ne riješi,
it becomes a precipitating event to start a new crisis.
on će jednostavno postati novi događaj koji će uzrokovati novu krizu.
So, on the right side, it can go back up. It's a new crisis now.
Može se vratiti kroz novu krizu.
And I go through all the negative things again.
Ponovo prolazim kroz sve te negativne stvari.
I don't get it fixed. Now that becomes a new crisis.
I jednostavno se ne rješavaju, pa postane nova kriza.
And at some point I am just totally exhausted.
I u jednom trenutku osoba bude potpuno iscrpljena.
I can't see any way out at all.
Da više uopće ne vidi izlaza.
I get desperate.
Postane depresivan.
I get sad. I get depressed.
Postane žalostan.
I feel lonely.
Usamljen.
And what it takes is for you and I as helpers.
I ono što sada nama treba kao pomoćnicima.
To say, let's stop it somewhere. How do we stop this?
Ajmo sada stati sa tim. Ajmo sada vidjeti.
Let's go back and evaluate.
Ajmo sada vidjeti i razlučiti i razmotriti stvari ispona.
And our job is to move things from the red square
I naš je posao da iz ove crvene kocke, crvenog područja,
over to the green square.
stavimo u zeleno područje.
Does that make sense?
Ima li to smisla?
That's what we can do
To je ono što mi možemo učiniti
as a helper, as a counselor.
kao savjetnici.
See if there's anything else we need
Da
to
vidim,
look at.
postoji li još nešto što mogu s vama podijeliti? Imate pitanja možda?
I was going to tell you how to have a perfect marriage, but we don't have time.
Želio bi govoriti o savršenom braku, ali nema sad vremena.
So I'm off the hook.
Da, sad nećemo o tome.
You know, God has gifted those of us that want to be helpers.
Bog nas je obdario stvarima da možemo biti savjetnici.
He's given us skills,
Dao nam je vještine,
insights,
uvide.
He's given us each other.
Dao nam je jedne za
We can
druge.
share among ourselves.
Možemo međusobno podijeliti.
What do I do to help someone through this time?
Kako mogu proći kroz neke stvari?
We know that feelings
Znamo da osjećaj,
and thoughts and actions are all tied together.
misli i osjećaji su dosta povezani.
And if I don't know what to do with feelings or thoughts, I can just work on actions.
I ako ne znam sa mislima i sa osjećajima, onda razmotrim osjećaje, djelovanje.
And we know that some people move from crisis to crisis to crisis.
I znamo da neki ljudi idu iz krize u krizu u krizu.
And the sad thing is, crisis becomes an addiction.
I žalosno je da kriza može postati ovisnost svoje vrste.
The only way some people can feel anything
Jedini način da ljudi ne osjećaju ništa
is to create a crisis.
jest da nešto počnu osjećati, jest da uzrokuju krizu.
And that's sad for me that someone has to do that in order to feel something.
I mene to žalosti kad vidim da ljudi moraju uzrokovati nešto da bi krizu, da bi nešto osjetili.
So our job is to help folks resolve the crises in their life.
I naš je posao da pomognemo riješiti krize u našem životu.
And then once resolved,
Jednom kada ih riješimo,
how do we move towards spiritual health and emotional health?
kako da napravimo korak prema emocionalnoj i duhovnom zdravlju?
And then how do we stay there?
I kako da ostanemo onda u tome?
And the next time there's a crisis, I will know what to do.
I kada se sljedeći puta pojavi kriza, da znam kako da postupim.
Because you helped me through the last one.
Zato što ste mi pomogli jer mi je bilo pomognuto kroz prošlu krizu.
Now, one of the things that I was taught in graduate school,
Ono što sam rekao svojim diplomantima,
especially with counseling,
osobito što se tiče savjetovanja,
it's a very important principle.
to je vrlo važan princip.
And this is it. I see one,
Vidim,
I watch how somebody else does it.
uočim ga i vidim kako ga drugi rješavaju.
I'm so grateful to the people that helped me.
Zahvalan sam ljudima koji mi pomognu
And let me observe how to do it.
i razmatram kako ga rješavaju.
So one of the things you may do with each other
I jedna od stvari koje možete učiniti jedni s drugima
is practice with each other,
je da prakticirate međusobno,
be involved with each other as you're helping someone else.
da se uključite, pomagati drugima.
So I see one,
Dakle, ja vidim krizu,
and then I do one.
nešto učinim
So now I do it myself.
i sada mogu to napraviti sam.
We don't get it right all the time.
Nećemo uvijek napraviti to na ispravan način.
And the grace of God helps people that we work with not to get hurt.
I milost Božja nam daje da možemo sa ljudima s kojima radimo, da ih u svojim pogreškama i ne povrijedimo. Jel?
So I see one,
Vidim,
I do one,
odradim
and then I teach one.
i onda poučavam.
So after you've done it for a while,
Nakon što ste to neko vrijeme radili,
find someone you can work with and teach them how to do it.
dakle, nađite nekoga s kim možete raditi i poučite i njih kako da rade.
They don't have to have a PhD in psychology.
Ne moraju imati doktorat iz psihologije.
Just need to know how to love each other.
Moraju samo znati kako da ljube jedni druge.
So teach someone else how to do it.
Učite druge kako da to čine.
Multiply your gift a little bit.
Multiplicirajte svoje darove.
So they can see one
Tako da i oni mogu
and
vidjeti
do one.
i nešto učiniti
And they can teach one.
i oni mogu dalje poučavati druge.
You see a cycle here?
Jer vidite ovdje jedan krug,
Because there's some time in your life you're going to want to retire.
jer postoji vrijeme kada ćete htjeti ići u mirovinu.
No, you're not going to.
Ne.
You can repurpose.
Da, možete se reaktivirati svoju svrhu.
But I enjoy teaching this class
A meni je jako drago kad mogu poučavati ovaj razred,
because what I get to do is take my experience
jer ono što mogu učiniti je svoje vlastito iskustvo
and multiply it by how many?
umnožiti među nama, jel?
Over the years.
Kroz godine.
So when I get too old to do this,
I kada budem previše star da više to ne mogu učiniti,
I can sleep well,
mogu dobro spavati,
I can eat whatever I want to,
mogu jesti kaj god hoću
and I can go fishing.
i mogu ići pecati.
Thank you so much for your time.
Hvala vam puno za vaše vrijeme.